Third drop
Yo,
is
what's up, man?
live right now.
Man, I'll let you start summarizing it while I organize the audience and get the team ready.
Got it. All right. Yeah, go for it. So the third drop is happening right now. It is about the removal of Donald Trump, and it's not from January 6th. It is from October 20th of 2020 to January 6th. So here we go. First tweet in the thread reads, thread, Twitter files removal of Donald Trump, part 1, October 2020 to January the 6th. Number 2, the world knows much of the story of what happened between the riots on the Capitol on January 6th and the removal of President Donald Trump from Twitter on January 8th. Number 3, we'll show you what hasn't been revealed, the erosion of standards within the company in months before J6, decisions by high-ranking executives to violate their own policies, and more, against the backdrop of ongoing documented interaction with federal agencies. Boom. Boom, let's go. Yeah. So this is exciting.
Jeez, that's escalating pretty quickly. I didn't expect the next drop to be today.
Me neither. Well, it's happening, whether we like it or not. I wanted to play video games. You know, I just wanted to sit down, play some Elden Ring. They released a new update on the game, but yeah, that's not happening.
And then I saw y'all were jumping on the call, so I was like, all right, I gotta put this down.
All right, man. Do you want to give an overview, Ian, while he's organized of what we covered yesterday? Yeah,
okay,
before this one. Overview of yesterday's ones, and then explain today's what that means, what the escalation means.
Got it. Okay, yeah. So last week, as if you've paid any attention at all, I'm sure you have, they released the first batch of the Twitter files. That's Elon Musk's very promised reveal of what went on behind the scenes at Twitter. And last week they revealed a number of things. For instance, what did they reveal last week? My brain is fried somewhat. Okay, so they revealed last week that, wow, I just went on a show and did that thing. I'm terrible as a host today. I'm sorry. Yeah, so they revealed a bunch of stuff last week, and then yesterday they revealed that shadow banning was actually happening. So shadow banning is what everybody's talking about and how it was very one-sided. It was only done to conservatives to suppress conservative voices like Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, who I don't know if he's conservative or not, but he spoke out against lockdowns and he was shadow banned. Him and many other people, including Dan Bongino, conservative commentator, Charlie Kirk, conservative commentator, and Libs of TikTok. These three were named, or at least these four were named, as being shadow banned. And by shadow banning, they use this term called visibility filtering. It's a very 1984-esque newspeak way of talking about suppressing people's reach, their ability to be visible on timelines, on trending hashtags, and so on. This is how they limited visibility, and that's where we were at so far. So today, they're revealing how the Twitter's internal rules and regulations were simply became lax, right? Because, as he said here, we'll show you what hasn't been revealed, the erosion of standards within the company in the months before J6. Since October, they started doing this, and decisions by high-ranking executives to violate their own policies and more against the backdrop of ongoing documented interaction with federal agencies. So they were colluding with the federal government to do this. And number 4 is just out right now. He said that the first installment covers the period, and so this is a part of a multi-part series about this specific limitation of, or rather limiting of Donald Trump and how they wanted to ban him. So the first installment covers the period before the election through January 6th. Tomorrow, Michael Schellenberger, will detail the chaos inside of Twitter on January 7th. And on Sunday, so we're getting 3 days of drops here. On Sunday, Barry Weiss will reveal the secret internal communications from the key date of January 8th. So we'll be getting a lot of drops in the next couple of days as well. So this is the first of several releases. So maybe
and just to add on to your overview, Ian, the first drop, since we skipped over that one a little bit, was just the Hunter Biden drama, that story coming out, as well as just the preferential treatment of celebrities and politicians in terms of what could be removed from the platform.
Yep, that's right. Thank you. My brain had a glitch. It was a glitch in the matrix.
All good. A lot has happened.
Did y'all find the mainstream media response, like on par. Like that's what y'all would have expected out of them. Almost like, yeah, like we knew it was going on, but it was nothing burger type of thing. Like I thought it was pretty.
Right, it was like worse than what I expected. I thought at the very least it would cover it and talk about their own shortcomings when it came to the release of the Hunter Biden story, because they all tried to downplay that one as well when it happened. They claimed it was Russian disinformation, and they had 50 former and current intelligence officials corroborate that claim, right, that it was Russian disinformation. Turns out it wasn't. It was, in fact, his laptop, and all the contents on it are. If he was Donald Trump, I mean, this is Donald Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr., we'd still be talking about it. Trump would have been like 100% impeached for it.
Yeah, 100%. That would have never went away. Pretty crazy stuff.
It's just showing how dishonest the corporate media actually is with covering stuff. Because all these journalists and reporters are all downplaying this. There's that one NBC senior journalist that's completely downplaying this, acting like they didn't do journalism malpractice in the past few years. And it's just embarrassing for the corporate media.
Yeah, it seems like,
and
it seems like nothing. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Tara. I didn't see there.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say that, my story, my coming forward about Joe Biden was very much suppressed. I was shadow bound, whatever, but he was also called Russian disinformation. And it'll be interesting to see as these files come more and more out, who they were investigating behind the scenes, how much intel, how much the intelligence community was involved with colluding with the Biden campaign. All of that needs to come out. And so I hope it comes out quickly because, it's not just affecting celebrities or high profile accounts. It's affecting just regular citizens that differ from the narrative.
Yeah, and I see we got number 5 here out. Ian, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I'll take it. I'm just refreshing his little page here because it gets quite laggy sometimes. Yeah, okay, I see it now. Sorry about that. Yeah, number 5. Whatever your opinion on the decision to remove Donald Trump that day, meaning on January 8th, the internal communications at Twitter between January 6th and January 8th have a clear historical import. Even Twitter's employees understood in the moment it was a landmark moment in the annals of speech. So they knew what they were doing was wrong, right? 100%. They knew. Yeah, they knew what they were doing was wrong. That removing a sitting president for what they claimed was incitement to violence. Now, if you watched the actual last video that Trump tweeted out before he was suspended permanently, was him telling people not to be violent. So how is that incitement to violence? They removed it anyway, right? There was no call for it, none.
Here we are. It's almost like the legacy media. You could pretty much assume what really is happening is 180 of what they say. Calls for peace is incitement of violence. A nothing burger is actually a big juicy steak, and it goes on and on.
Yep. And that's what they're going with. I memean, they're calling the yesterday's release a nothing burger. Previously, they said that it was just conspiracy theory, right? Conservatives were not being banned. It was just, they're just making things up. Like we're just sad because we're unpopular and nobody cares about our tweets. We're just crying about nonsense. Turns out it was real. They were shadow banning us. And what happens yesterday? Well, after they drop the files, the media goes on and says, when I say the media, I mean like personalities in the media, people like Ben Collins, they're like, oh, yawn, we knew this already. So they just downplay it. They just pretend that it was always happening. They always knew it was happening. It was no big deal. Oh, whatever, and that is how they treat these stories. They minimize it or whatever.
You're so right, Ian, because this is such a big deal because it influenced. I'm not a Republican, but I'm not a Democrat either. But it influenced people while they were trying to make a decision about voting for the president of the United States. It's huge. It had an impact on the midterm elections. Look what they're doing to RT. Now, I have written some op-ed for RTs. You write great articles, Ian, for RT. RT is a voice that's very well balanced, in my opinion. It just gives a different perspective. Why do we always have to only look through the Western lens? But yet they're labeled as Russian state affiliated, media. And then I have some colleagues that are very good, investigative reporters that are labeled as Iranian affiliated media. When are those labels going to be lifted? Because those people are also, any anti-imperialist or anti-war person is being completely shadow banned and dismissed. And Are
their
they
account.
not technically though? Are they not technically affiliated with Russia though? Just I'm not saying they should be shadow banned or
What about
censored, but
NPR? What about PBS?
well, yeah,
What about
they
what
are
about
affiliated.
MSNBC that has like every single
I think
spook out of
they
the
should
CIA?
also be. I mean, I think anybody that's affiliated gets money from the government or anything like that should be labeled as such.
I
So
don't think so
NPR would
because
be.
we're grown-ups. We can make our own decisions. We don't need labels on people. We just need information and then we can choose our different. There was a time when you could like look at a lot of different views, and I feel like the cling to power and the holding onto the narrative has become so narrowed that now they're just using private companies like Twitter or other social medias to really narrow the narrative to one point of lens, one point of view. And how that's harmed is it harmed conservative voices and voters that wanted that information. It harmed anti-imperialist voices that wanted to talk about not spending $80 billion on a proxy war that nobody wants. So that's
At what point does some of this become like treason? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, to an extent.
They not technically affiliated with Russia though. Just I'm not saying they should be shadow banned or
What about
censored.
NPR? What about PBS?
Well, yeah,
What about
they are
what about
affiliated.
MSNBC that has like every single
I
spook
think
out of
they
the
should
CIA?
also be. I mean, I think anybody that's affiliated gets money from the government or anything like that should be labeled as such.
I
So
don't think so
NPR
because
would be.
we're grown-ups. We can make our own decisions. We don't need labels on people. We just need information and then we can choose our different. There was a time when you could like look at a lot of different views, and I feel like the cling to power and the holding onto the narrative has become so narrowed that now they're just using private companies like Twitter or their social medias to really narrow the narrative to one point of lens, one point of view. And how that's harmed is it harmed conservative voices and voters that wanted that information. It harmed anti-imperialist voices that wanted to talk about not spending $80 billion on a proxy war that nobody wants. So that's
At what point does some of this become like treason? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, to an extent. I mean, we're talking that. I mean, your influence, like, to silence a seated president like this is it's fucking crazy. And at what point do people bring up treason talk?
Just dropped.
Well, the moment Republicans start doing it,
Hold on.
Just guys quickly. Yeah, number 6 is out.
Yeah, number 6 just dropped. I'm going to have to read it. As soon as they finished banning Trump, Twitter executives started processing new power. They prepared to ban future presidents and White Houses, perhaps even Joe Biden. The new administration, says one executive, will not be suspended by Twitter unless absolutely necessary. And so this is some internal documentation. He actually posted some insider stuff here. So the first one, I didn't actually read that when he talked about how whatever your opinion to remove Trump that day, blah, 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 they understood it was going to be a big deal. So that message there, and the names are redacted here. It said here, is this the first sitting head of state to ever be suspended? ? So they knew what they were doing was a big deal. And now in the second drop here, he says, and this is another redacted post from some executive inside of Twitter saying, as stated in our ban evasion policy, if it is clear that another account is being used for the purposes of evading a ban, it is also subject to suspension. For government accounts such as @POTUS and @White House, we will not suspend those accounts, but will take action to limit their use. However, these accounts will be transitioned over to the new administration in due course and will not be suspended by Twitter unless absolutely necessary to alleviate real-world harm. So these people actually thought they were bigger than the government. Like, they were basically talking about how they could move to suspend any administration they did not like or agree with. And that is, for instance, like the Biden administration.
That's exactly like the Biden administration. It's very strange how we are all collectively sitting here listening and watching how this is all going down. I know a lot of the people that are listening were the ones that were saying this was happening, and it's sure they're going to gaslight us. They're going to try to psyop us into believing that this shit wasn't really going on. But I mean, this is like a perfect example of them saying that they're bigger than everyone else, acting like they're the new type of government. I mean, think about it, this is like what people used to talk about when they were discussing things like the Illuminati, except for it's more like a cabal. And this is really what we're kind of seeing happening in front of our faces, is like we're seeing the cabal being exposed. And it's not like people think. I wouldn't say. It's more like these people collectively have come together to do this operation, and we're starting to see how this operation has been uncovered. And I think it's insidious, obviously. Like, we knew this stuff was going down, but like just this last little post right here, it's like they're conditioning everybody that's working at Twitter to just be okay with it. I mean, I don't think anybody should have ever been okay with any of this stuff going on. And, to what Ian was saying earlier about the news media, like, what are they doing to us at this particular point in time, other than just telling, oh, well, it's not a big deal. It's a nothing burger. You're not eating a big, gigantic tomahawk steak. Turn your face away. This isn't the real. This isn't the truth. But, here we are. This isn't just this is a tiny bit of information, right? This is from January 6th. But think about how far back this truly goes.
Your mic is a bit muffled, a tiny bit. It's going in and out.
All right. Well, it's just think about this particular juncture. We're going to have like 5 or, there's years of these messages that are out there, right? Like, this probably goes back much farther than just 2020. I'm talking like we should be asking people to start looking at 2016 and before, because like that's when we're going to see that this whole operation was really started, right? Like, this has been ongoing for very many years, and now we're starting to see how deep the operation was. And I mean, why are they redacting the post nowadays? The only thing I can think of is the basic fact is they don't want anybody else or other people going after folks, because everybody's been on these things like crazy.
Ian, has there been a more overused term than Russian misinformation? I mean, we just heard Miss Reed talk about how.
I need to be right back. Okay, I'll be back in about 5 to 10. I'll be right back. I'm just going to mute myself.
No problem.
The term alleviate real world harm. The term real world harm, I find, is used a lot as well. And it's like, what is real world harm, and how do you measure it? How do you assess that? So, what is real world harm, and how does Twitter define it? Because that's in that number 6 post, right? How does Twitter define that real world?
They don't
harm?
define it, so they can be very vague with why they ban people. Ben Shapiro was going into this in his show today, and they intentionally worded it vaguely, so whatever caused real world harm or direct to violence or something like that, they made it entirely vague on purpose so they could ban anyone for any reason.
I just want to chime in. I think that nothing we've seen yet today is really shocking. We knew that Trump was banned because of what Twitter thought was promoting the insurrection and maybe possibly calling for violence. That's what they.
Sorry, hate to interrupt you. We'll come right back to you. We got number 7 up, and then we'll come back to you. So number 7 says that Twitter executives removed Trump in part over what one executive called, quote, context surrounding, end quote, actions by Trump and supporters over, again, quote, over the course of the election and frankly last 4+ years, end quote. In the end, they looked at a broad picture, but that approach can cut both ways. And then here's an email to Vijaya. It's a bit long here, and I will speed read through it the best I can. There's a few parts that are redacted. I'm working with Redacted on my team to put together a document to share with you a point of view from research, ours, academics with whom we have been working with, etc., on Donald J. Trump's language as coded incitement to further violence. And then Redacted. In the meantime, here is our quick take. The decision on whether to pull that particular tweet or use that as the last straw for Trump depends on many factors, including the overall context and narrative in which that tweet lives. We currently analyze tweets and consider them on a tweet by tweet basis, which does not appropriately take into account the context surrounding. You can use the yelling fire in a crowded theater example. Context matters, and the narrative that Trump and his friends have pursued over the course of this election, and frankly the last 4 years, must be taken into account when interpreting and analyzing that tweet. The larger question is around our moral imperative and decision as a company, which user sentiment should not be based on number one, redacted. And I believe that his tweet does violate our rules when taking that historical context plus current climate into account. Wow.
Stephen,
a lot there. What do you make of that?
Stephen, what's so crazy is that this seems to be the only context in which this logic was ever applied by Twitter. I mean, there are full-blown terrorists on the platform tweeting far more violent things that don't necessarily violate the policies, right? Surely, if you look into the context of terrorist groups being allowed on the platform, this logic would apply to remove violent terrorists. Yet it seems like only when Donald Trump is involved or his affiliates that we begin to use this historic context to justify kicking someone off an app for a tweet that they never even sent.
Yeah, that's what I agree with you.
That's what I never understood, because there were like, if you are extending beyond just Twitter itself, right? If you're going beyond the platform and your actions on that platform, well, yeah, then those terrorist cells that also have used Twitter to recruit and have provably used caused real world harm, quote unquote. Well, not even quote unquote real world harm. Then we're talking about then why does this constitute? So it's so loose in their interpretation.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Sorry to interject. Sorry to interject on you again, Krusty. There's number 8, and then let's definitely bookmark to Krusty after this. Okay, number 8. The bulk of the internal debate leading to Trump's ban took place in those 3 January days. However, the intellectual framework was laid in the months preceding the Capitol riots. And then back to you, sir.
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting to see what they say, what happens next year, what happened in those prior months. I think a few things. I think, number one, I never agreed that Trump should have been banned. I think they made the wrong call on that. It does show that they deliberated within the company. So far, we haven't seen any sort of political influence in this other than maybe the employees who had political leanings. So it's going to be interesting to see if there was any outside influence. I don't think there's going to be, but we'll see as this goes forward.
I think this is a quintessential example of selective outrage, selective enforcement on terms of service based around a predetermined narrative, a predetermined desired outcome, right? But it's great to hear you say that you agree that he shouldn't have, the former president shouldn't have been banned. I mean, you were the quintessential number one anti-Trump reply guy. Is that safe to say during your season?
I think that's safe to say. I think that
was prolific AF.
I probably would have been slightly happy seeing him get banned at the time, but I don't think it's the right call from the company. I think they should have been able to foresee that it was going to bring blowback, and he has the right as president to express himself.
Thank you for that. We got number 9 here. We're going to go to that. Before January 6th, Twitter was a unique mix of automated, rules-based enforcement and more subjective moderation by senior executives. As Barry Weiss reported, the firm had a vast array of tools for manipulating visibility, most all of which were thrown at Trump and others pre-January 6th.
Well, think about this. QAnon. You know how QAnon blew up over Twitter? QAnon was basically what they utilized in order to figure out how they were going to proceed with banning Trump, because based on what we see here, at the same time, we're seeing that they had already been building this framework for some period of time, and the only really logical solution when you look at what the news media was talking about and how everybody sometime around 2019 shifted to talking about this insidious cabal of people running around talking about Hillary Clinton getting arrested and shit like that. That specific piece of disinformation, I think that PSYOP really led into what we were seeing with them, because they had to take the time to figure out how they were going to run the operation. And in the months leading up to anything January 6th related, they were already playing, I guess, a proverbial game of pin the tail on the donkey. They already had all the different items that they wanted set up. They were just basically waiting for something to happen, somebody to make a mistake, and that's what we see now.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Tara, just saw you snuck in here. What's going on? How are you?
I'm freaking out. This is exactly what we wanted. This is amazing. I was just tweeting again yesterday saying, can we please see the January 6th Trump file? So yeah, good job, you guys. I was off my phone for a while doing some other things and getting ready for the Eliza space that she's putting on in regard to the child exploitation stuff that they're going to be releasing today as well. So today is a huge day. I love that they're doing this on Fridays because a lot of people are off work. They're able to tune in, and a lot of news networks are not really paying much attention. And a lot of what's happening here now won't even be reported until Monday. So thank you, and huge props to Mario for getting in here and getting on this space right away, and Ian and all of you guys. Amazing work.
Absolutely massive, and thank you for that. We got number 10 out, and there are a couple hands, and we'll get to you guys. Number 10, as the election approached, senior executives, perhaps under pressure from federal agencies with whom they met more as time progressed, increasingly struggled with rules, and get this, and began to speak of quote-unquote bios as pretexts to do what they likely would have done anyway. So that kind of dovetails off of what we were just talking about previously, you guys. So, Catherine, what do you say?
Oh, I was just thinking about just generally in terms of the, a lot of people are kind of, I put out a post, sort of saying how important it is to have certain rules that are consistent, and people are like, well, now you have this one person controlling Twitter, and we're criticizing me for the post, and I'm thinking, well, yeah, you now do have one person controlling Twitter, but it's not about the person controlling Twitter, it's about the principles, right? So here we have these things being laid out. So these reasons for why maybe they banned Trump and some other accounts. And the key is to create a set of rules which are clearly defined, that are transparent, which are enforced fairly and clearly, that are kind of iron proof, And I think if we are going to proceed with this new Twitter 2.0, free speech, whatever, if we want a Twitter that's a much better version, it needs to have rules that are clear, defined, rigid, well applied, and have that transparency, so that it isn't about this whoever runs Twitter or this one person. It is about the principles that guide it. It is about these clearly defined rules. So that's what's on my mind right now.
Yeah, I think that's pretty well said. Dimitri, what you got?
Hey, thank you. So I actually want to build on what Catherine was just saying, because I think, while I don't want to minimize the political dimensions of the story, and I think that they're acutely relevant for people who have been on the receiving end of some of the shadow banning and some of the sort of politically skewed or politically motivated censoring of content, which I also think using the word censoring in this context is also misleading, because fundamentally what these platforms do, just as a matter of how they work, what it means to run a social media platform today, is to make normative judgments and have standards about how to treat information, what to amplify, what to suppress. This is all part of the job description. And so when we're talking about the rules and what kind of rules we want to be applied and how to be applied.
Dimitri, sorry, I got to cut through like a little bit of a butter knife here. We'll put a bookmark it and pick up where we left off. We got number 11 here from Matt Taibbi. Number 11, after January 6th, internal Slack show Twitter executives getting a kick out of, now get this, oh man, take a deep breath on this one, folks. Internal Slack show Twitter executives getting a kick out of intensified relationships with federal agencies. Here's trust and safety head Yael Roth lamenting over a lack of generic enough calendar descriptions, quote unquote, to concealing his quote unquote very interesting meeting partners. And this is a screenshot of some DMs from Yael Roth with the recipient being redacted. And I'll just speed read through it quick. Keep in mind, these are messages from Yael. It happens. I'm a big believer in calendar transparency, but I reached a certain point where my meetings became, well, very interesting to people, and there weren't meeting names generic enough to cover. Anyways, let me know. Then redacted reply. Very boring business meeting that is definitely not about Trump. Wink, winky face. Then followed up with pretty much, and then his last DM, all caps, definitely not meeting with the FBI. I swear. LMAO. My goodness gracious. My opinion. Bombshell. What say you, Tara? Then we'll go to Lala.
That is insane. I am honestly speechless and just listening. You can go.
Okay.
You can go to Lala.
Just Stephen, I just want to confirm one thing. So this is for me the biggest. This is the biggest tweet yet. Like, I'm looking at the others. This one is essentially, at least what I'm implying, is that Yoel spoke directly with the FBI about Trump, and that was before. And that was before Trump's account was banned.
Correct. That's what we have evidence of here right now.
And that's the president of the United States.
Correct.
So Twitter executives were talking to the FBI about the account of the president of the U.S.
That is correct.
And keep in mind, the FBI has since searched Trump's home as well.
Number 12 is out, guys. These initial reports are based on searches for documents linked to prominent executives whose names are already public. They include Yoel Roth, former Trust and Safety Policy Chief, Jai Gaddy, and a recently plank-walked General Counsel, Jim Baker. So he named names here. The three names are Jai Gaddy, Yoel Roth, and Jim Baker. Thus far.
Yeah, 13 just hit 2.
Go read it, guys.
Okay, yeah, number 13 is out. Yeah, one particular Slack channel offers a unique window into the evolving thinking of top officials in late 2020 and early 2021. So he's about to drop that one next.
Oh my gosh.
I wanted to bring up the point that, these are the type of things that, like, especially, in Western governments where you expect there to be groups, and it's almost like the big club that you're not involved in. And, these groups making decisions for other people and playing politics. I hope everyone listening is cognizant of the fact that this is coming out on.
With cheese?
Wait, what's that?
Medium size, please. Can I get a number 1 with cheese?
Oh.
What? Well, what I was saying is,
I think I was ordering a nothing burger.
Somebody nothing burger. Very funny. Yeah.
So whoever was speaking, I'll let you jump in again.
Yeah, it was Steve.
But I just want to, before that, I just want to confirm again, Steve, because this is big, and I'll try to stay as factual as I can. So if I tweet, latest drop confirms the FBI spoke with Twitter executives regarding the suspension of then President Trump.
Yep.
Yeah, and specifically Yoel Roth was speaking and coordinating with the FBI regarding President Trump's suspension.
Yeah, so essentially you have these, I don't want to call them political appointees, but people who work under the executive branch, meaning the FBI, right? They are not beholden to Congress, they're not beholden to anyone but the president. They were working to undermine him. So when Donald Trump talks about the deep state, this is what he's referring to. The people who essentially work for him are working against him. That's fascinating.
But it's important to understand that we don't know the context of these conversations.
Does it matter?
It possible that
number 14 is dropped. Number 14 is dropped. Good afternoon,
Get going.
Okay, so number 14. On October 8, 2020, executives opened a channel called US 2020_XFN_enforcement. So, you know where we're going with this. Through J6, this would be home for discussions about election-related removals, especially ones that involved high-profile accounts, often called VITs, or very important tweeters. People like Donald Trump would be a VIT. People like Charlie Kirk would be a VIT. Someone like Libs TikTok would be considered a VIT. And so this is the text from the Slack channel. It says here, Hey everyone, starting tomorrow, October 9th, until November 15th, this channel will be used for the following reasons related to the US 2020 elections. Trends identified that required scaled investigations, high-profile accounts escalations that potentially require PII or / soft interventions, scalable solutions required, edge cases for XFN consultation, highlight tech issues, bugs, outage, Jira tickets. That's like their their ticketing software, support software. This is an enforcement channel between T&S and TWS to help speed up our response related to election issues over the coming few weeks. GET will start providing a handover starting APAC shift tomorrow. I don't know what APAC means. I guess it's a time. Friday, October 9th, using the following template handover. And then the next shift, EMEA, APAC, and NA. I guess those are like Asia Pacific, North America. I think that's what it refers to. On Thursday, October 8th, 2020, open escalations, none notes on the shift. Ask. So this is the person asking, can you please make sure everyone within the channel, the teams we included as follows, and this is all the teams involved, okay? So site integrity, safety and policy, product trust, safety operations, media ops, global escalation team. So if you have any concerns or questions, let me know.
And the next one is out, I think, as well.
Yeah, it's out. Yeah, so number 15. Yeah, there was at least some tension between safety operations, which is a larger department whose staffers used a more rules-based process for addressing issues like porn, scams, and threats, and a smaller, more powerful cadre of senior policy executives like Roth and Gaddy. So you had internal friction here. You had, the safety team, which just enforces the rules according to what the rules are written as. They're not going to, step outside the boundaries.
But Ian, this safety team are the ones that are responsible for making the decision, and the executives getting involved are the executives going against the process to make the decisions.
Yeah, so they're basically, they're more powerful than them. They're executives. They rule the place, right? But yeah, so the safety team is like, what the hell's going on? I mean, you are just basically enforcing the rules as you see fit. Meanwhile, we're here trying to enforce the rules as it's written, right? Not according to your whims or according to your political demands. Now, it seems like, the team that was run by Roth and Gaddy, they were deciding to just simply do whatever the hell they wanted, right? They were not running the place properly. They were using or misusing their power.
Do we know that it wasn't the other way around?
Yoel Roth had a tweet stating that Donald Trump was racist and calling him a tangerine. So I'm pretty sure we know where he stands on Trump. So I'm sure it was his, dying wish to have Trump removed from the platform.
Yeah, that's fair.
What was your question, Brian?
Oh, no. I was just saying, do we know if it was that way or was it another?
Yeah, it was that way. Yeah. He was very openly disdainful of the president.
Adriana, Ms. Jacob, I see your hand up for a while.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is you can call me Ari. But my takeaway from all this is that, it really comes down to access. These people act as gatekeepers. And, I was at the Twitter offices several times with social media stars that I represented who were popular within Twitter because of their popularity with the LGBT culture and all that. And any tiny issue that these stars had, I could call somebody at Twitter and get something done in minutes. And what we saw the other day is that, but when a request came in from the Trump administration, from Kayleigh McEnany or whoever had sent that email, they have a direct contact. Somebody answers them. Maybe somebody won't. What did he say? He said, just pretend to care for 20 days or something. And so if you don't have an ally at Twitter who can quickly make moves for you, you can, like, if Trump and Kayleigh McEnany can't have somebody that can make things happen for them, you can forget about civilians like you and I having any type of access. And this comes down to who had the relationships and how could they scratch each other's backs. A small but blatant example of this is the fact that Jim Baker hasn't liked, tweeted, posted anything all year. And the last thing he liked on November 11th was a meme video on Taylor Lorenz's page making fun of Twitter Blue. So I want to know, what is her relationship with the FBI and with the DOJ? And I've seen it happen before where, she's basically asking people to, send her story to somebody at the DOJ, and she has contacts there. So, it's, it goes deep within the media and people like Taylor Lorenz. And if, imagine if she has and it's a bit of a long shot, I don't know, but just because you liked her tweet, but what is her connection with Jim Baker? That's what I want to know.
Exactly. I mean, like, people might say it's a conspiracy theory to assume that she has contacts within Twitter. She does. She even admitted it a few days ago. This was before Jim Baker was fired. She said she's got a couple of people there who are still working there that they haven't gotten rid of. Number 16
out.
So I'm just going to read it. Yeah, number 16. The latter group was basically a high-speed Supreme Court of moderation, issuing content rulings on the fly, often in minutes and based on guesses, gut calls, and even Google searches, and even in cases involving President Trump. So his name is redacted here. It says, "Hi everyone, received this escalation just now," and it's a tweet by Donald Trump where he tweeted, "Breaking news: 50,000 Ohio voters getting wrong absentee ballots, out of control, a rigged election." Now he loved to tweet stuff like this, right? And then there's conversation here between an anonymous executive saying a rigged election would be enough to be in violation, right? And then Yoel Roth replies, says, "If the claim of fact were inaccurate, yes, but it looks like it's true." Oh, and he links to an NPR thing. So thankfully, Yoel Roth prevented, in this one instance, prevented Trump from being banned, right? But they were so ready to ban somebody. They were so ready to ban Donald Trump because he tweeted out a fact.
17
a literal fact. Yep. Because it went against the narrative, right? He talked about election manipulation. He talked about, people getting the wrong ballots. Oh my God, like, there's got to be fake, guys. It's fake news. It's like, it's not fake news. It literally happened. NPR reported it. 50,000 ballots were sent out by accident to voters in Ohio. They got absentee ballots, and who knows how many of them turned them in? We don't know, right? And that's a concern. But hey, we're not allowed to talk about it. Anyone who was actually talking about it on the lower levels, who were not Donald Trump, probably got suspended or shadow banned for even mentioning it. Incredible.
Well, to your point, Ian, I kind of want to go back to the seventh tweet for a moment.
We got 17 here, you guys. We haven't read that.
Yeah, go ahead,
bro. Go ahead.
17 says, during this time, executives were also clearly liaising. I have a really hard time just pronouncing that. Liaising with federal enforcement and intelligence agencies about moderation of election-related content. While we're still at the start of reviewing the Twitter files, we're finding out more about these interactions every day. What say you, Ian?
Fascinating. Not surprising, but fascinating. I think it won't be in this particular drop. They won't particularly name any FBI agents or how often they talk to these feds. I mean, we know from another release, not the Twitter files, but from an ongoing lawsuit by Eric Schmidt, the AG of Missouri. He's going after the Biden administration, and they found out a bunch of stuff. They found out that the FBI had an agent, Elvis Chan, not sure if he's still there, was liaising with Twitter every single week. So that's probably a part of it. He may not have been the only one, and Matt Taibbi and all these other journalists who are looking through these files are going to have to find this information, and I'm sure they will release them. It's just a matter of time until we figure out how deep this collusion went.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious that this is the real reason they didn't want Elon Musk to purchase Twitter. This is exactly what they didn't want to get out. They didn't want this information ever to be revealed, and they never planned on it happening. So hats off to Elon for putting his neck on the line.
But then they
forced him to buy it.
Yeah, they legally took him to court to force him to buy Twitter. So which is
well, he couldn't say no. That's the thing. I mean, the way that law is written, so that he, can exactly.
Yeah, but they could have, like, if he's like, guys, I changed my mind, they'd be like, oh, cool, all right, we want.
The courts don't work for them. The courts don't work for them. Fortunately, the court in Delaware, which was handling his case, the judge is actually pretty neutral. She's very neutral. She's very fair-handed. She has a good reputation of following the law. So even if they were to have tried to lean on her to get her to say, oh, yeah, just give Elon what he wants, let him cancel the deal, I don't think she would have gone through with it. So thankfully, there are many people in government, in courts, who are, upstanding moral citizens who are not going to be swayed by this, this kind of manipulation by the federal government, or at least members of the federal government.
I'm curious how much they deleted, because
I was going to say the same. I was going to say the same thing. Yeah. I'll let you finish. Sorry, finish your point, Catherine. I was going to say the same thing, but I'll let you finish it.
No, it's kind of the same because Elon did indicate that there were some deletions going on, and I imagine because they were prepared for the takeover, so it wasn't like it was news to them, and it's not, if they were doing it internally with the support and the blessing of the executives at Twitter, they could have gotten away with it. So I imagine that there was probably some deletion sort of at a high level, because it's much harder to do that if you're sort of a low level employee trying to do it, because their experience.
Catherine, we do have number 18 that just
number 18. I'll read it. Yeah, Policy Director Nick Pickles is asked if they should say Twitter detects misinformation through ML or human review, and partnerships with outside experts? ? The employee asks, I know that's been a slippery process. Not sure if you want our public explanation to hang on that. So there's two screenshots here. One is Nick Pickles. Are you comfortable with marketing talking about misinformation by saying that we detect it through ML, human review, and partnerships outside of experts? And then another person replies, says, I know that's been a slippery process, so not sure if you want our public explanation to hang our hat on that. Basically, they're lying when they're in public and they're saying, oh, we got people looking over these things. Turns out they probably don't. And then Nick Pickles replies, he says, can we just say partnerships? E.g., we're not sure we describe the FBI or DHS as experts, some NGOs that aren't academic. So what he's saying here in this little chat here is that he's admitting that the FBI and the DHS tells them that something is misinformation.
19's out.
And NGOs as well. So those are activist groups, right? I'm going to read 19 now. Fascinating. So they were working with activist groups as well as the government. Nick Pickles goes on to say he quickly asks if they consider partnerships. After a pause, he says, e.g., not sure we describe the FBI or DHS as experts. He already tweeted that twice. Well, silly. But yeah, so they're working at NGOs, they're working at DHS, and they're not experts. They're just some guy that says, oh, it's misinformation, right? But they don't have any actual evidence that it is misinformation. Now,
and do they act on it before verifying? Do they say whether they act on it or not? Or are we implying that they act on it?
They simply acted on these things based on gut feeling. That's what he said in a previous tweet, that they would simply go in there and be like, oh my God, Trump tweeted this. Can we ban him? And obviously,
that's pretty significant.
A smart guy there.
One of these experts was John Podesta's niece, who was listed on that highest super secret shadow banning board. John Podesta's niece.
It's this whole thing of listen to the experts, right? Like for the last few years, this whole idea of they consult with the experts. They make these informed decisions, but they're not, right? Like what you said, Ian. They're going to these outside organizations. Most of whom are not actually using any experts.
That's right. Yeah, it's people who are politically motivated who will tell you something is misinformation or disinformation, such as the Center for Countering Hate is a very far left organization in the UK. In the US, you have a bunch of them as well, like the ADL. So they're the experts, but they're not really. They're just making things up. They want to silence people. I mean, the ADL recently said the Azov battalion are not neo-Nazis. It's like, excuse me, you guys literally said they were before. So which is it?
I think it's important to see what these conversations were about.
Your mic, sorry, just Brian quickly. Your mic, Catherine, is just very muffled. Just a heads up if you could fix it. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I think it's going to be important to see if they have any records of these conversations between Twitter and the FBI or any government agency. I think there are during the election. So on election day, I think the FBI does play an integral part in making sure that certain information is not disseminated, such as, hey, this polling station shut down. Hey, something's happening over here and you can't vote here. If people are posting that is actually information that the FBI would be interested in. I'm not saying that's what this is all about. It probably isn't, but I think it'll be interesting to see if they have conversations.
My question would be why didn't...
Number 20 is out, so I'm going to read that first. This post about Hunter Biden laptop situation shows that Yoel Roth, I keep saying Eli Roth, not only met weekly with the FBI and DHS, like I mentioned earlier, but with the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, that's the DNI. So, bot application, Yoel has checked in. Here's what they said. What's new since you checked in? Hacked materials exploded. We blocked the New York Post story. He was giving them updates. So here is Yoel Roth giving these people an update. Saying that, and then we unblocked it, but said the opposite. Wow, that is huge. Okay, so we unblocked it, but then said the opposite, and then said we unblocked it, and now we're in a messy situation where our policy is in shambles, communications is angry, reporters think we're idiots, and we're refactoring an exceedingly complex policy 18 days out from the election. In short, FML, fuck my life. weekly sync with the FBI, DHS, and DNI regarding election security. This meeting happened about 15 minutes after the aforementioned hacked materials implosion. So he's referring to them deciding to nuke that New York Post story. The government declined to share anything useful when asked. Monthly meeting with the FBI, FITF, briefed on several ongoing investigations. Wow. So
that's crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's insane.
You know, I heard you guys, if you say Nick Pickles into the mirror 3 times, you turn into a nothing burger.
Nice.
Lala, what's up?
Yeah, I mean, this is what happens when you abandon your own policy of reviewing tweets tweet by tweet for this contextual, like, I can't get over that, the contextual review of like what surrounds this tweet or what surrounds this person. And they even cite like a 1919 Supreme Court case. They misquote the yelling fire in a crowded theater as if to legally justify this like change in policy without recognizing any of the tests that the Supreme Court has ever set out for freedom of speech. So they misquote a Supreme Court case to justify this massive transition in terms of how they're actually reviewing and moderating. And then they wonder why they're in this predicament with like, oh, we look like idiots and oh, all this stuff is crazy now. It's like, well, if you're going to act like a de facto arm of the Supreme Court without doing any of the legal tests or any of the hard work or analysis that goes into protecting free speech and being balanced like that, then we shouldn't be surprised when things devolve to this type of extreme.
Okay, number 21 is out. Good timing there. I'm going to read that now. If it actually loads. God damn it.
Come on, Ian, get your shit together, mate.
Yoel Roth's report to the FBI, DHS, and DNI is almost farcical in its self-flagellating tone. Quote, we blocked the New York Post story, then unblocked it. Okay, it's the same stuff, FML. Yeah, okay, it's literally the same thing. It's the same thing. He tweeted the same thing twice. Never mind. All right. Didn't really miss anything. He's just doubling down on the same post because he wants to add a little bit more context to it. Got it. That's fine.
I think it's, if it's an open floor for a second, I think it's interesting that they've decided to do quite a targeted Trump-specific sort of thread. I've still not yet come down from sort of yesterday's mayhem and, palaver, which was, can I just say again, Mario, good job, mate. That was so much fun.
Number 23. Yeah. Here it goes.
Okay.
Some of Yoel Roth's later slacks indicates that his weekly confabs at federal law enforcement involved separate meetings. Here, he ghosts the FBI and the DHS, respectively, to go first to an Aspen Institute thing and then take a call of Apple. So he was actually just ghosting them. He was like, oh, too busy, and then he says here, this is a screenshot attached to it. It says, hey there, I have to miss the FBI and DHS meetings today, unfortunately. I saw that you're on the invites for both as our site policy. Can you give me a quick readout if there's anything interesting that comes up? And then some guy named Patrick Conlon replies, says, sure thing, I hope everything's okay. And Yoel replies, yeah, just have conflicts at both times. An Aspen Institute thing this morning on vaccines that I have to be present at, and then a call with Apple to avoid us getting kicked out of the App Store during the DHS one. And Patrick replies, says, yeah, those both seem pretty important. And Yoel replies, indeed. Yeah, I'm sure the Aspen Institute is totally important, you guys. Totally important. It's not just to build his personal clout. Yeah, so national security can take a back seat, Yoel's got to go to a thing with the Aspen Institute.
Yeah, the hubris that's just emanating off of these correspondences with Yoel is just extraordinary. Madeline, what's up? I saw that she had her hand up there, but what do you say, Ari?
Mine's gonna be quick. I see Harrison's hand.
Mute you again. I'm so sorry. Number 24 is out. Oh, I'm so sorry. She says here the FBI sends reports about a pair of tweets, the second of which involves a former Tippecanoe County, Indiana councilor and a Republican named John Basham, claiming between 2 and 25% of ballots by mail are being rejected for errors. So here we got an FBI that is literally calling in to suppress a certain tweet put out by a Republican. And it says here, we got a report from the FBI for 2 tweets, and one of them, he links to the tweet, says related to the shredding of mail-in ballots. This is proven to be false through this, and it's a PolitiFact article that he links to. So they don't even actually have that information available to them. They're just linking to something that they found on Google, like, oh, his claim is false because PolitiFact said so, right? And number two says, I believe was deemed no on numerous occasions. So yeah, the FBI reported a tweet that they claimed was misinformation, and I guess they linked to a PolitiFact article, and that's what got those tweets pulled down. So they're using the media to suppress people. Fascinating.
Sorry, I had one of my team members sending me stuff, so I'm so sorry I missed. But I just want to let you guys know that there is an article, Married to Art by John Podesta, that's now been deleted, which was the one where it showed this very deviant art with children. I think a lot of us knew this, back a few years ago, especially during WikiLeaks. And Natalie was just sending it to me. She's like, the article is gone. Fortunately, I was just about to post it, and I will post it now. But I just want to let you guys know that Married to Art by the Washington Post, that was about the Podesta brothers and that very odd art that was very sexual and sexualizing young children, has been deleted by the Washington Post, something that usually they don't do because it's kind of just a bragging rights about being very open about the things that they're interested in. So, so I just thought I would put that out there.
Is it Married with Art? It's still up.
Yes, Married with Art. And
it's still up. It's still up.
I will post it.
No, I have it. I literally have it open right now. It's findable on Google. It's still up. They didn't delete it. So I think you're incorrect.
Thanks for verifying that, Ian. Piotr and Harrison. I good. Harrison, go ahead. Go.
So, yeah, the FBI at this point has just become the police force military wing of the DNC. They're more concerned with suppressing the speech of right-wingers in there to stopping mass shootings and the child porn all over the internet. It's at what point do we just say abolish the FBI? They're no good.
I wouldn't go to that extreme. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I would just say that for me, the bigger, in my opinion, the bigger concern is the fact that the FBI requested from Twitter to delete a tweet. Whether that tweet had right or wrong information, that's not the point. The point is that they reference, as Ian said, a political article as evidence.
So I'm going to
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Yep. So he connects. This is it's number 26, but okay, number 25. He goes. The FBI's second report concerned this tweet by John Basham. I'm gonna open it. It says here, editorial: the Democrats are in complete panic as their massive push for hashtag vote by mail is backfiring on them. Two things are unfolding. Return ballots 2 and 25. So this is the tweet that he was referencing earlier. I guess it's gone. And number 25, well, it's more like number 26. The FBI flagged tweet then got circulated in the enforcement Slack. Twitter cited PolitiFact to say that the first story was proven to be false and then noted that the second was already deemed no bio on numerous occasions. So he's just kind of repeating himself here, but he actually pointed out the exact tweet that he used. Yep. Let's see, Rose McGowan's here. Nice.
Hey, welcome, Rose.
Hi. That's what I was going to say.
Hello.
Hey, good to see you.
Oh, number 26 is out. Well, it's more like number 27, but I'll go. The group then decides to apply a learn how voting is safe and secure label because one commenter says it's totally normal to have a 2% error rate, and then Roth gives the final go-ahead to the process initiated by the FBI, and his message here in the Slack chat is, I think we can use the mail-in voting label for this one as is. So they didn't suppress it in the sense that they didn't ban this tweet. It's more like they added a little warning to it. So this is how they decided to add warnings to tweets. Basically, this guy made a call, and they would just act on it.
Yeah, hardly shocking, but hardly surprising, I guess is the phrase that keeps coming to mind.
That's right. Number 27.
Number 27, yep.
Yeah, he's fast. Today's fast.
Really fast.
Examining the entire election enforcement Slack, we didn't see one reference to moderation requests from the Trump campaign. So Trump campaign never contacted them at all. I think they could have, but they never did. Right? They didn't use that at all. The Trump White House or Republicans generally, we looked. They may exist. We were told that they do. However, they were absent here. So it looks like there's not a single request from any Republican or the GOP or the RNC or the Trump campaign or the Trump White House at all to get anything removed. It was
okay. That will be my second biggest tweet. So the first one is one I referenced to earlier about the just before the Trump election, talking about the FBI regarding Trump's account, and now this, because I assumed, and we said before, that it goes both ways and it's bipartisan. Though it is leaning more to the left for obvious reasons. This one goes to a whole other extreme. The entire election enforcement Slack, we didn't see one reference to moderation requests from the Trump campaign. Again, doesn't matter if you're on the left or on the right. That's pretty extreme.
It is, yeah. It shows that the conservatives have no intention of censoring anybody, because if we're told that they exist, right? Matt Taibbi was told that they exist, and yet he can't find anything. He can't find anything from any requests from any conservatives, whether it's the RNC, Trump campaign, or the Trump White House, to remove anything at all.
So I just want to chime in on that point, because being in DC, I've got quite a fun perspective on all of this. It's interesting how little this was really being acknowledged. I was at the football, and there were some people, you're in DC, you come across all sorts of people working in certain positions, and there was not much of a fanfare about this. People are trying to remain somewhat sort of like, oh, it's not that big a deal, or it's not going to come thing. And then you talk to some people on the right, more like Republican leaning, and it's like, no, this is huge. So it's interesting, the distinction between people on one side of the aisle and those on the other side. And to your point about the sort of suppression of information from sort of the right wing side, people are like, no, they definitely do that. They definitely do that. So there's the general misconception or sort of belief on the left, the far left, perhaps, particularly the right wing does it as well. That there's a degree of authoritarianism to the sort of that side of the aisle. And it shows just how difficult it is.
Yeah,
31. Oh Christ!
Looks like we skipped ahead to 31 here. Looks like a picture of Mike Huckabee, if I'm not mistaken. It says, in one case, former Arizona Governor Mike Huckabee joke tweets about mailing in ballots for his, quote, deceased parents and grandparents, with a picture of him there. So what are you making of the skipping from 27 to 31 there with a picture of...
I don't know what to make of it.
He screwed up the numbering. I think he's doing it so quickly, he just screwed it up, right?
Well, we know that's what reporters will be talking about. They'll be talking about how Matt Taibbi can't count rather than the actual content.
That's what they'll be talking about. And 32 just came out, so I'm going to read that. He's referring to the Mike Huckabee tweet. This inspires a long Slack chat that reads like a Titanium McGrath parody. So Titanium McGrath, if you don't follow that account, it's a parody account. It's pretending to be, a woke leftist. And the person says, I agree it's a joke, concedes a Twitter employee, but he's also literally admitting in a tweet a crime. Wow, so the guy tweets a joke, and they're like, it's a crime, you can't say that, you can't do that. Oh my God, it's insane. These people were so mental, and these were the people deciding what we're allowed to say and what we're not allowed to say. You can't even tell a joke, because, oh my God, you tweeted a crime. Yeah, sure.
I wanna first, we're just for everyone listening, we are talking to Jack Dorsey's team about getting him onto the space in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully that works out. It's looking positive. So I'd love to get his take. And the reason I'm mentioning this because I was going through Rose's tweet. If you go to Rose's account, the first tweet she mentions Jack deactivating an assault victim's account, hers. So deactivated Rose's account.
I think it's important for Rose to kind of give a little bit of backstory because
I'd love the story, please.
Yeah, she's been calling these people out for a long time.
Yeah, she has. And Rose, feel free to speak. You have the podium.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear. Loud and clear.
Awesome.
First space.
I just want to say, it's so heartening to hear people out there that actually care about context and about the fact that when we joined up with Twitter, we didn't know we were signing up with the FBI. Do you know what I mean? As a person, the background, the context for me is 4 days after outing Weinstein, something it took me 21 years to do. My account was deactivated, immediately followed a 24-hour women boycott Twitter worldwide. That got me reinstated. And now we know it's not shadow banning, it's VF. But I've been VF'd, and it gets to the point where it works. You know, the suppression works. You stop wanting to tweet, you stop wanting to engage, you start hating everybody, especially all the people around you at a dinner table that are talking about, you know, like the Trump stuff. And now we know that, you know, who knows? I mean, what was ever actually said, because none of this has been real. And all the misinformation and the damage done is catastrophic. And I would love to hear Jack's take on that. And I do hope you get him in this space soon. And hats off to you all. Badass.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, Rose. That's you have such an extraordinary narrative behind all of this. Has and all this, yeah.
Like you stood up before anybody else would, right? And you took this massive hit to your career. They destroyed you, but you did it anyway. You knew what would happen to you, and you did it anyway. And you gave so many people, whether it's victims of domestic abuse or sexual abuse, or victims of just abuse of power, you gave them the strength to speak up and say, you know what, I can do it too. She can do it, and she can take this hit. I can do it too. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for recognizing that. You know, I appreciate it. It is something when you give up everything, when you give up a career, when you give up your house, when you give up your freedom and security. It tried to put me in prison for 10 years. I mean, this stuff was real. You know, it's real psychotic, but it's real. And it has deleterious effects, you know, for a lifetime. And so that's why you guys are all giving me so much strength, just hearing you on the side, whether you're left or right or somewhere in between. You know, as I am, or just somebody who doesn't believe in any of this bullshit. It's just right on and go for it. And let's get this done. Let's get it clean. Let's clean the house. My thing is really very much against abuse of power. Number one.
Can I just point out that I was on stage and I was off my phone, so I didn't realize exactly who was speaking. I then open it up and see that you're talking, and wow, amazing to be on stage with you, Rose. So thank you very much for that.
Rose, one thing you mentioned that I like, for me, this is the most important problem. A much bigger problem than all the politics we're discussing, that's abuse of power. If there's so much power in anyone's hands, even a good person, good people could do bad things or could become bad people. That's, for me, it is a concerning problem long term. And this is an indication of this. We're talking about Twitter now. We're not talking about Meta. We're not talking about Google. We're not talking about Apple and any other company that has Amazon that has that much power. So for me, Rose, the point that you mentioned, abuse of power, is the core problem long term.
Okay.
And the powerful elite.
Could you tweet that out? Sorry.
Go ahead, Ian.
Okay, yeah. All right. So the group declares Huckabee's tweet an edge case, and though one notes, one of the people in this group noted, we don't make exceptions for joke or satire. They ultimately decide to leave him be because we've poked enough bears. So they almost banned him for making a joke. That would have been insane. And then, there is, I believe, another tweet that he just put out. Yep. It says, quote, could still mislead people, according to one of the people. Before moving on from Huckabee. So they decided to let this one go. And he posted a long thread, a chain of conversations within the Slack channel where they were making these discussions. And so Yolarov is the one who says that, I saw this one last night, agreed it's a joke, but he's also literally admitting in a tweet to a crime. So he's the guy who has no sense of humor. Yolarov, the guy who is in charge of trust and safety, or was in charge of trust and safety, thought that, oh my God, we should ban him. Oh. And he keeps going. He says, I could see us taking action under misleading claims that could cause confusion about the established laws, regulations, procedures, and methods about a civic process, but it's not one that we could really label in a useful way. So it's removal of a stupid and ill-advised joke or nothing. I may be inclined not to remove without a report from voting authorities, given that it's been a while since he tweeted it, and virtually all the replies I'm seeing are critical or counter speech. P. Conlon, A. Rodericks, R. Summers, what do you think? So these are the other people in the chat, okay? And they're being named right now, and they're all like having a little conversation. They have no sense of humor, and looks like a new one just dropped. He's pretty fast in these ones. Yeah, I'm going to read that one now. Yolarov is a loser. I'm just putting that one out there, okay? He's a loser. Number 33, he goes, Yolarov suggests moderation, even in this absurd case, could depend on whether or not the joke results in confusion. The seemingly silly case actually foreshadows serious later issues. Yeah. So yeah, it's the exact same thing I just read.
Can I just say the guy needs to cool it on the output of these tweets? It's more hectic than the football earlier. Sorry,
Yeah, so we can now resume conversation. Sorry for interrupting, but yeah.
You know what's wild?
So for me, I just
sorry.
Go ahead, man.
Sorry, I was just wanting to make kind of a humorous observation off of the last few tweets there from Taibbi. Ian, don't you find this rather humorous and remarkable that these folks were having a pseudo meltdown over the most mildest of boomer con jokes from Mike Huckabee? I mean, this just goes to show how just far gone and how just.
This is what happens on Facebook, by the way. No one really talks about it here because everybody here uses Twitter, right? I don't know how many of you use Instagram or Facebook, but try posting a joke about Hunter Biden on there and see what happens to your account. I tried it, and I got banned for a while, recently even.
What's that?
They don't let you joke about Hunter Biden. They say it's hacked materials. They still do. So those people there are even more humorless than Twitter, and they have even more power than Twitter, arguably, because billions of people use their service. And 34 is out, so goodness me. He goes, in the document, executives often expand criteria to subjective issues like intent. Yes, if video is authentic, but why was it shown? Orientation. Why was a banned tweet shown to condemn or support or reception? Did a joke cause confusion? This reflex will become key in January 6th. So he's leading up to the point here where he's going to say, I'm just predicting here, but I think I'm spot on here, where he's going to say that Trump telling people not to do violent things, not to, fuck up the congressional halls, that in his estimation is probably going to be, he's calling for violence secretly. He's dog whistling to those racists in there. That's what he's going to get at, because that was precisely how they ran the site. You could tweet something out without context, and they would assume the context. They would assume you're saying something that you're not, even if you're saying exactly the opposite of what they think you're saying. It is
basically it's like, did it help Republicans and hurt Democrats? And that's your criteria for context, or why was it shown?
Yeah, that's how they ran the place. So you tweet out something like, I don't know. For instance, okay, so Eric Bolling, I was talking to him a few minutes ago, right? Because that's why I had to take off for a while. He said that, for weeks and weeks and weeks, he would tweet that hydroxychloroquine is safe. I mean, it is. I'm not saying it, it should be used for a vaccine or anything like that. It's not a replacement for it. But he would tweet that out, and that got him shadow banned. Like, just tweeting out that it's safe, which it is. Right, it's an over-the-counter drug. You can buy it. You can buy hydroxychloroquine for many different reasons. You get it for deworming, for instance. Tweeting that out, context, guys, context. Like, you're not allowed to say it at all. And this got me suspended once upon a time. Like some old tweet from 2014 where I tweeted something that was like a hot topic issue, not at the time, but became a hot topic issue later on. I think it was something to do with pandemics or lockdowns. They used that to suppress me for a while.
So I'm going to have an unpopular opinion here, I'm sure, but the FBI's job is to ensure free and fair elections. And
I'm 35 is in. Sorry to interrupt you again. In another example, Twitter employees prepared to slap a mail-in voting is safe warning label on a Trump tweet about a postal screw-up in Ohio before realizing the events took place. Yeah, it actually happened. It actually happened, which meant the tweet was factually accurate. So the tweet was about the 50,000 voters received wrong ballots in Ohio. Do you feel safe? Mailing in your ballot, ? And this was an ABC 13 news tweet. This is a news station, their local news station put that out. And Donald Trump quote tweeted it and said, no, a rigged election, because of course he did. That's our Trump. And the conversation ensues in the Slack chat where he says, Trump tweeted, just posted these two tweets, a link to it. Learn how voting by mail is safe and secure. Not sure what the process is for GET. Are we expected to do the policy comms write-up for this? And they linked to the tweet. And Yoel Roth says, Trump just posted two tweets. It's still linked to the same thing. And then they said, until Yoel wakes up. So they're waiting for him to make the call. So, there's a funny tweet earlier from Elon Musk earlier where he insinuated that the real CEO was the head of Trust and Safety, meaning Yoel Roth. And I think that, Matt Taibbi showed Elon Musk all of these tweets, all of the internal Slack conversations, and he decided that, the man who was actually in charge of Twitter was Yoel Roth. It was not Jack Dorsey, right? Jack Dorsey is not in any of these logs. He had no say in any of this. This is something that was being done by Yoel Roth and Yoel Roth alone. He would make the calls. So
when did Elon make that tweet?
Earlier today. Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, a few hours ago. Yeah. So before the Meta IB stuff, a couple hours before that, he tweeted that out. It's in a reply to somebody else. I'm not sure who exactly, but you can find it on his timeline. There is a remark here from I'm not sure who exactly. The name is blanked out. It says, "I've been on PTO, so not 100% up to speed. Personal time off, right? PTO. My understanding in both cases is that these events took place, and the commentary by POTUS is the opinion related to these real events. So there wouldn't be any labeling or action or violation on our side." And then Yoel replies and says, "Yeah, ... Those are factually accurate ... Thanks for clarifying." And now another tweet is out. Matt Taibbi's tweeting up a story.
36.
36, yeah. He says, "Well, very well done on speed. Trump was being visibly filtered as late as a week before election." Oh, Trump got shadow banned. This is the big one, boys. This is the big one. Trump was shadow banned. I'm going to tweet that out. Before the election. Holy crap.
Yep. So
holy crap.
Here we have big bombshell confirmation that
this is the bombshell. Yeah.
Former President Trump
confirming to me yesterday.
Yep, was visibly filtered, shadow banned right up before election day, within a week before election day, when it's most pivotal, when it's most consequence for his tweets to be seen as it relates to the election. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable, yep. But still worked fast to make sure a fairly anodyne Trump tweet couldn't be replied to, shared, or liked. Like they went out of their way to suppress him. And one of his tweets that got suppressed here, there's a screenshot of it, was, "Big problems and discrepancies with mail-in ballots all over the USA, must have final total on November 3rd. I mean, there's nothing wrong with what he said, right? It's accurate. There were discrepancies. There were problems with mail-in ballots, the 50,000 in Ohio, for instance. That's a fact. And yet they suppressed it. You couldn't even reply to it. Nobody could even see that tweet. They shadow banned him. Wow. Damn. And Yoel Roth in the private conversations in the Slack chat is saying, "What's the team's recommendation?" And then there's a link to a Google Doc here. Not sure if that is accessible. Somebody might want to type that in and confirm that. Maybe it's still up. "Thank you. Agree with the recommendation. Flagging right now with leadership, given its POTUS. We'll set up a call. Can we use the new doc, like the new document per the PII review?" And someone replies, "Okay, I'll also include that in the playbook after." And then Yoel Roth says, "EDI approved." So I guess, the big boss, Parag Agrawal might have signed off on this one. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So they shadow banned Trump. This is the
actually, I want to go, Brian, I want to go to you because you don't like Trump. That's love him. I made a tweet and I said, "Love him or hate him, this level of power is concerning to say the least."
I'd like to comment on that.
Yeah. So I don't agree with them shadow banning Trump, obviously. Well, maybe not obviously, but what I was going to say before is that the FBI's basically their mission is to ensure free and fair elections. And that one tweet that they recommended to Twitter in that conversation, I think it was number 27 in the thread, it basically said that there was a 25% rejection of mail-in ballots, which was false. The FBI knew was false, and they were passing it on to Twitter. So I don't have a big problem with that.
Yeah, that one probably deserves to have a little thing tacked onto it saying that it's false. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
The shadow ban is the main one. That's
the main one, yeah.
And it's
that,
1 week before election.
Yeah, the random guy, having his tweet not shadow banned, but just they added a little notice to it. Not a big deal, right? Not a big deal. Like that guy is full of shit anyway. But with Trump, on the other hand, Trump didn't say anything that was actually false. They flagged him anyway, and then they shadow banned him for it. And the latest tweet by Matt Taibbi goes on to show all of the whole team patting each other on the back. They're saying, "Very well done on speed, folks. What this is all designed for, and a huge positive for the platform." So they were really just happy over the fact that they shadow banned Trump. They're literally cheering each other on for shadow banning Trump. And
we got 37 in here, Ian.
I'm reading it, yeah. A seemingly innocuous follow-up tweet involves a tweet from actor real James Woods, whose ubiquitous presence in argued over Twitter data sets is already a Twitter Files in-joke. That's pretty funny. So they're talking about him like the journalist. And the tweet here by James Woods is, Twitter is suppressing this tweet by president. Here's a screen grab. And he literally took a screenshot of Trump talking about the problems with mail-in ballots. And that gets turned into an issue by the people inside. Like, they didn't even allow people to screenshot Trump's tweets without suppressing them. I mean, that happened to me personally, right? I'd screenshot one of Trump's shadow ban tweets, look at his timeline, and then, you know, they would suppress it. Literally, they would literally suppress tweets that were highlighting the fact that other tweets had been suppressed. This was insane.
Yeah, at least they put a notice on there, and they didn't just do it without his knowledge. I give them credit for that.
Yeah, but you still couldn't see it though. Like, it wouldn't show up on your timeline. That's the thing. You had to literally go to his account to see it, right? Yeah. So, like, I'm a journalist, obviously. I'm going to be looking at his timeline and refreshing it, you know, every couple of minutes or whatever. And that's how I knew. And I guess that's how James Woods saw that tweet as well. It probably didn't show up in his timeline because it was suppressed. It was shadow banned. He had to go there to Trump's timeline and screenshot it. That's how he got it. Because there's no way to quote tweet it even. Like, they literally were suppressing it. That is nuts. I mean, we knew they were doing this, but holy crap, to actually have the
So
evidence.
what's the, did they say, I'm just reading the thread again out to 35, I'm rereading them. Did they say why Trump was shadow banned a week before election?
Yeah, because he was tweeting things that they didn't like.
And what did they say those, what did they like? What did...
So he said that there are discrepancies and problems with mail-in ballots all over the U.S. So they looked at it as he's going to scare off the mail-in ballot vote. I'm guessing. Were there problems? I'm sure there were problems in many places. I don't know if it was a widespread problem, but that's where they're seeing that's what they're seeing.
So essentially, just to kind of summarize it, so they're saying Trump was falsely tweeting about rigged elections or tweeting about false claims.
There's nothing wrong about it. Like, that's the thing, right? What he tweeted out was a fact. There were big problems and discrepancies with it, and they suppressed him anyway. That's the fucked up part. He didn't do anything wrong, and they suppressed him anyway. They didn't care about the rules at this point. They were like, yeah, let's just suppress that. It seems close enough to a bad thing, right? And this is what Matt Taibbi was getting at, was that they would literally, just suppressing people because they felt like it. Like, oh, that tweet seems like it's a bad thing.
38's out.
Anything wrong.
38's here.
I'll read it out.
Okay.
Yeah. After Woods, as in the actor Woods, angrily quote tweeted about Trump's warning label, Twitter staff, in a preview of what ended up happening after January 6th, despaired for a reason for action, but resolved to hit him hard on future VIO. That means, offenses to the terms of service. So they didn't do anything to this particular tweet, but they were agonizing over it. They were pissed off that they couldn't do anything. So here is what they said in private. Considering the PV2 bug out this weekend, James Woods being so over the strike limit that our tools won't work on him. I suggest we action him for something worth this fiasco rather than the screenshot, since we don't have a firm policy basis for action on his account. And then someone else replies this, yep, you are fine letting this one lie, can hit him hard on the future with firmer basis. So they were just like eagle-eyeing his account, waiting for a moment for him to fuck up somehow, or just even remotely fuck up, right? To cross the line, just a slight.
Yeah, what these correspondences show to me is that just how vindictive and petty that these folks were. I mean, that last statement there is pretty extraordinary and gives you a real first-eye view to the mentality of many of these folks. Where he says, since we don't have a firm policy basis for action as account, recognizing that there's nothing he was doing that was technically violating terms of service, but let's keep an eye on it and get creative for anything that we can take him down on. Just wow.
Did you read 39 as well, Ian?
Maybe Ian stepped out here. Let me check it out.
No, I got it. I got it, yeah. So 39, he says, here's a label applied to Georgia Republican Congresswoman Jody Hice for saying, say no to big tech censorship, and mail-in ballots are more prone to fraud than in-person balloting. It's just common sense. It's true. They are, right? And so they actually applied a stay informed, learn how voting by mail is safe and secure. Find out.
40's out as well.
Yeah, 40's out as well. Twitter teams went easy on Heist, only applying soft intervention with Roth worrying about a Wawa censorship optics backlash So they knew what they were doing was wrong. What they were doing was open censorship of conservative voices, particularly elected officials, but they're afraid of the optics. They're afraid that if they went too hard on too many conservatives all at once, that there would be a backlash and it would look really bad. It would get called to Congress, and they didn't want to deal with that, right?
So Ian, on that point that they knew they were doing something wrong, is there maybe a legal person in here? Is there anything illegal that the executives or whoever was making these decisions did? Is there any legal?
Fidget, yeah, we got Fidget there.
No. Suppressing the president of the United States.
No, nothing illegal.
I don't think there's. I guess it really depends. I mean, do you want to call it in-person donations? Because 97% of the company was donating to Democrats. So one could argue, at least in Congress, maybe not in court, but in Congress, that they were giving essentially free donations to the Biden administration by suppressing their competition. Right? That is an argument that can be made. It's something that I think some senators are talking about making right now, especially with regards to Jack going to Congress and basically lying to his fucking teeth about how there was no suppression at all. So that is the thing that Tom Cotton and Josh Hawley and the rest of them are going to have to deal with. Jim Jordan is going to have to deal with them in the House, right? And Josh Hawley and Tom Cotton are going to have to deal with them in the Senate, and that is probably coming.
Okay, so for proper legal analysis and for a bunch of people listening, Twitter is not and was not a governmental agency. They therefore were either a private company or they were a public company, and their responsibilities to their shareholders. Their argument, if this ever went in front of court, would be that this was best for shareholders to maximize profits with ad revenue, given the major demographic of Twitter users. They did not. They are allowed to censor whatever they want. The question of whether they lose Section 230 protection for being a publisher is a separate question. Whether Jack Dorsey lied in court in Congress is a different question. But it is patently not illegal what they did, fortunately or unfortunately.
Mike, another question I have for you, Fidget. How about their claims that they were not censoring? If there were such claims, would that be misleading investors or misleading their customers?
Well, that would be the question.
Regulators?
It'd be the question of damage, right? So misleading regulators seems like that's an obvious one that occurred, right? That's a different kind of crime. I believe Grant was asking, and most people are
41
asking.
41 is that?
Go ahead.
All right. If actually, okay. Meanwhile, there are multiple instances of involving pro-Biden tweets warning Trump may try to steal the election that got surfaced only to be approved by senior executives. This one, they decide, just expresses concern that mail-in ballots might not make it on time. And this is some guy saying, quote tweeting ABC News of the, what is this? The Chief John Roberts has administered the judicial oath to Amy Coney Barrett, who officially joins the Supreme Court. She replaces Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And this person, Elijah Daniel, quote tweets that tweet and says, "This is so disgusting and terrifying. They're going to try to steal the election. You have 1 week. If you haven't voted yet, don't mail, drop it off and vote early. If you can't vote, make sure that your family, unless they're Trump supporters, just let them forget." So hashtag vote them out. So that tweet was allowed. That was totally allowed because the leftists tweeted it, even though it's probably worse. It's arguably worse than what Trump tweeted out. So it's okay for him to say that. It's okay for him to say, don't do mail-in ballots, guys. Actually go out there and vote, and they're going to steal the election. That's fine. If you're a leftist, you can totally tweet shit like that out. That's fine.
And just for clarity, so this is my takeaways. First of all, it's getting really hard to argue in Twitter's favor as these things come out. Besides for that legal factual basis of the fact that it was not illegal, disheartening and immoral, probably. But what I'm taking away from here is the left government entities made requests to Twitter to take down things. Twitter, most egregiously, not only took down stuff that was requested, but was actively looking to take down things that were left unfavorable, i.e. that would impact the election in Trump's favor or against Trump's disfavor. And it sounds like that the Republican Party, nobody made any requests to Twitter ever.
That's insane. Yeah, that's surprising.
Well, do we?
But they said Republicans were fascists.
Yeah, funny, Brian. Yeah, Eric Bowling has just joined us. So yeah, you can speak if you want to, Eric.
Otherwise, Eric, you're muted. Yeah, Lala, Ari, you can jump in as well. By the way, Stephen, check your DM. Go ahead, sorry,
I
Lala.
did have a question. I'd love to involve.
Eric, go ahead.
Allow me to I apologize. I wanted to let you know this group is amazing, and Ian was on with my show yesterday, and he's on again tonight. You want to check it out. And for me, the takeaway here isn't whether or not what Twitter was doing was technically legal or illegal. The takeaway is that Twitter we know other social media entities hide behind the Section 230 rules, kind of a prophylactic protection against some litigations. Well, if that's going to be the case, it should be used evenly across all sectors of the American public or the world public, really, or anyone who may be interested in suing an entity like Twitter, Facebook, etc. If not, then they certainly should be able to pick and choose who they want to shadow ban or censor. But don't hide behind these Section 230. We all know, given the choice, they would remain part of the blanket umbrella under Section 230. Then stop doing some of the things they're doing. And Ian, just want to let everyone know, Ian had some really concise, cogent comments on that, and inviting you and everyone else to watch it tonight. But and Mario, got to get you on too, my friend. But thank you guys for what you're doing.
Thank you. Thanks, man. Appreciate you dropping in. Tom, how are you? Tom, you there?
Tom, welcome back.
Tom is just too devastated by this news.
Tom, did you see the latest drops?
I have. I've been looking at them very carefully. This is pretty astonishing information. You have the FBI
working with Twitter to target
FBI. I think FBI just tried to call you.
Yeah. The FBI targeting conservatives for censorship through Twitter. And that raises a host of potential legal questions for those who have been subject to such censorship. I know similarly in California, I know Twitter was being used by the California Secretary of State's office. Similarly, they persuaded YouTube to take down a Judicial Watch video, and we sued the California Secretary of State on that YouTube censorship. So I can imagine similar lawsuits could be in the offing here. And then we see basically that President Trump was taken off of Twitter for no good reason. It's pretty clear that they punished him because they didn't like his tweets over a series of 4 years, and he didn't have any tweets that required suspension. And thirdly, you have President Trump being censored and suppressed, again, for no good reason, fair tweets about election controversies in the days before the election. And I just saw that one of my tweets pops up, or there's a reference to a tweet because a congressman dared to retweet me, and they wanted to punish the congressman somehow for doing so. And I know that I was targeted as well, simply because my tweets were constantly suppressed, even though I was posting material on election controversies that were completely accurate and well-founded. And Judicial Watch is a national election law expert, so we have been around the block many times on these issues. And for Twitter to start targeting us just showed how partisan and ideological they were. It was so bad that when I would tweet New York Times stories, they would actually censor the New York Times stories. That's how desperate they were to control the conversation. And I tell you, if we had a Justice Department we could trust, there'd be a criminal investigation going on to what went on here.
Thank you, Tom. We're backed up a little bit. We got 42 and 43 that just came in. I'll rattle off 42 quick, and then I'll hand it over to Ian. That's understandable in all caps. Even the hashtag steal our votes, referencing a theory that a combo of Amy Coney Barrett and Trump will steal the election is approved by Twitter brass because it's quote unquote understandable and a quote unquote reference to a U.S. Supreme Court decision, end quote, with a few screenshots there. Ian?
Yeah, I'll carry on from here. So it's just some random blue check mark, some guy named Dumbass Genius. I guess he's a dumbass. He's not really a genius, claiming that Amy Coney Barrett is going to steal our votes. And it's nonsense, right? It's a conspiracy theory on the left. It's what we call blue anon. And they're having a little conversation here in the chat and saying, Eli, Yoel Roth says, not seeing the violation here. So he didn't see the violation. He didn't see anything wrong with them saying, with the Democrats claiming ridiculously that Trump and Amy Coney Barrett are going to steal the election. Nothing wrong with that. That's fine to tweet. That's fine to put that out there. It's insane shit. And he puts that out there. And then another guy tries to justify it, says, that's understandable. I believe it's a reference to the Supreme Court decision on processing mail-in ballots that arrive on Election Day. Total nonsense. And number 43 says, in this exchange, again, unintentionally humorous, former Attorney General Eric Holder claimed that the U.S. Postal Service was deliberately crippled, ostensibly by the Trump administration. Again, that's nonsense. That never happened, right? He was initially, correctly, hit with a generic warning label, but it was quickly taken off by Yoel Roth. So Eric Holder, in his, in his genius, tweeted, it's too late to use mails given the Supreme Court rulings. I urge everyone to now vote in person, early vote, or use drop-in boxes. Protect your health, but don't let the court and deliberately crippled Postal Service deprive you of your most precious civil right. Plan your vote. And then, Yoel Roth actually removed a warning from that tweet. Remove the warning from that tweet. So it's a very one-sided way of applying the rules and regulations here. Number 44 is also out. I shall read that as well, if this actually loads properly. Okay, here we go. 44. Later in November 2020, Yoel Roth asked if the staff had a debunk moment on the SCYTL or Smartmantic vote counting stories, which his DHS contacts told him were a combination of about 47 conspiracy theories. So the DHS referred to it in a call today, sadly not public, as a combination of about 47 different conspiracy theories. So hopefully there's stuff out there. So he wanted to suppress any reporting on the Smartmatic vote counting conspiracies. He didn't really have evidence for it, right? He was just told, oh, it's just a conspiracy theory. Now, whether it is or isn't, kind of, you need the facts to claim that it is. So he didn't have any of the facts, and he was ready to debunk it, right? He was ready to shut it down. That's the process, just assume something is either true or false based on their preconceived biases or biases.
Yeah, absolutely. This whole tale. As more comes out, I just keep thinking of the narrative of these guys selectively enforcing terms of service, having a predetermined narrative and predetermined outcome already in mind, and that's all that we're seeing here, confirmed over and over and over again. Ari, you've had your hand up for a bit. What's up?
Yeah, I have to pop out of here pretty soon, but I just wanted to say thank you for having me up, and I just wanted to quickly, say thanks for bringing up Rose, and I know that was a while back, but I want to point out the hypocrisy that people like Yoel Roth and Vijay Gadde and the people that were clearly in charge over there they were virtue signaling and pretending to care about marginalized people and victims, but they turned their back on Rose McGowan when she stood up against Harvey Weinstein. And that's why I invited her to the room, because so many elites in Hollywood and people in power at the different platforms, they grifted off of Rose's story. They took over the hashtag Me Too. And, but people like Rose, I really encourage everybody to learn her story, because we need a culture of people who stand up to bullies and to powerful people that simply silence others. And, Rose McGowan responded to a DM I sent her when I was hopeless and shattered after Taylor Lorenz and the New York Times tried to destroy my life. So anyway, I just wanted to say thanks for having me up here, and
thanks, Sorry.
That's all.
Appreciate being here. Lala, jump in.
45 is out. 45 is out.
Oh shit! Go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. On December 10th, as Trump was in the middle of firing off 25 tweets saying things like "a coup is taking place in front of our eyes," Twitter executives announced a new L3 de-amplification tool. So a new shadow banning tool. They introduced this. This is very new. Designed it just for Trump. This step meant adding a warning label now could also come with de-amplification. So previously, when they were shadow banning people, it had to be a separate process, right? You would just add a warning, but it didn't necessarily de-amplify something. So Patrick Conlon, he was one of the engineers here, he tweeted, or rather sent in the Slack chat, "Hello everyone, I wanted to give you an update on some of our enforcement options for tweets containing a civic misinfo that we've seen. It's been decided that the tweets that we have manually reviewed and determined need a label now, that will need a label now to be subject to L3, level 3 de-amplification, further restricting the extent to which that tweet can be shared. The current batch of entity IDs will soon be used for automated labeling work, but I've now created a new batch of new entity IDs for the labels that we'll be using for the most during the past couple of weeks. Labels that we've only rarely used or have been deprecated already haven't gotten an L3 update. If there's a moment we need an L3 version on one of those labels, so please flag it to Matt Graydon or myself, or to find the new L3 entity IDs. And this is a new way for them to shadow ban people. And number 46 is out as well. Some executives wanted to use the new de-amplification tool because you want to play the new toys, right? To silently limit Trump's reach more right away. Beginning with the following tweet, and this tweet was Donald Trump tweeting out a video saying Trump got 11 million more votes, and it's a Jim Jordan video that he had put out. And they added a little thing there, a little warning to it. Stay informed. This claim about election fraud is disputed. And this is just Jim Jordan sharing his thoughts. There's nothing in that video, I've seen it before, nothing in that video that said the vote was stolen, nothing like that. It was just talking about how Trump had 11 million more votes, and why is it that he didn't win, right? It's just asking questions. Well, they used that to de-amplify him, to silently shadow ban him right away, without any sort of long due, process. They didn't have to walk themselves through it, try to figure out, is this something we shadow ban? Is this something we just add a warning to? No, they just straight away wanted to shadow ban him, and that's exactly what they were doing.
Ian, it seems to me the big takeaway off of this last round here is that the distinct sort of shadow banning that they're referring to as visibility filtering was solely kind of conceived for Trump, right?
That would be correct. Yeah, they used Trump as an excuse, basically, to push out this new tool, right? This tool to shadow ban people permanently, to make sure that none of their tweets get any sort of engagement. This is something they introduced during his time, and then they used it afterwards, subsequently, on everybody else. And number 47's out. However, in the end, the team had to use older, less aggressive labeling tools, at least for that one day, until L3 entities went live the following morning. So they eventually did roll it out the next day. So not for that tweet. That tweet was, still got some traction. That was fine. But they wanted further, more powerful ways of shadow banning people without people even realizing what was going on.
So these people behind the scenes were just operating based on their own personal bias, right?
Yep. That's basically it.
And instructions they were receiving.
Instructions.
But that doesn't seem that they were pressured based on the DMs.
Yeah, right. They weren't necessarily pressured all the time. Yeah, like they went along with it. They were fine with shutting people down because hey, it works out for them, right? They agree with it. They agree to censorship. All the DHS has to do is just say, hey, we're nudging you in the right direction, and they'll be like, yeah, you're totally right. We'll just do it. Hey, Kat. Oh, number 48 is out, so I'm going to read that first. The significance is that it shows that Twitter, in 2020 at least, was deploying a vast range of visible and invisible tools to rein in Trump's engagement long before January 6th. The ban will come after other avenues are exhausted. So they were finding as much as they could, right? They're finding as many ways as they could to suppress Trump's reach. They didn't want anybody to see his tweets.
Yeah, they were taking whatever creative liberty they could possibly concede. And a lot of these screenshots that we're showing of the correspondences between these fellas really is indicative of that. They're almost just kind of like brainstorming sessions on all the different creative ways they can thwart and censor and limit the reach of the former president. Wouldn't you say that's accurate?
Yeah. Hey, Tom, you got a hand up. Go ahead and speak.
Yeah, it occurred to me that we should respond to the spin that this is the Trump administration operating here. And I think the context has to be explained here. The Trump administration officials were frightened into this process of trying to control speech related to the elections as a result of the Russia collusion lies that were sold to them and the American people from 2016. So to follow up on that and to protect themselves from personal criticism, they authorized their agencies to engage with big tech platforms to censor American citizens. And it's unacceptable and inexcusable. And just because the Trump administration did it doesn't make it right. And those officials running the agencies at the time need to be held accountable. Mr. Wray, I forget who was running DHS at the time. At one point, I guess it was Wolf during that time. Why were they telling, it looks like, what were they meeting with Twitter and other companies for? And why were they authorizing their people to persuade Twitter and other big tech companies to censor Americans? I mean,
I think it's
this is a civil rights. Yeah, this is a civil rights scandal of unprecedented proportions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Go ahead, Ian.
Oh, Piotr, you have your hand up. You had your hand up for a while. You want to, yeah.
No, I just wanted to take a minute to say again. I mean, look, being in DC, you have a very predominant narrative out here, right? It's very left-leaning. It's very Democrat-heavy. And I think that this once and for all is going to really have some serious repercussions here about the conversations that are being had about hypocrisy of the far left, particularly the progressives, and the certain narrative that they push that there's a concern about censorship or oppression of people from different backgrounds because of X, Y, and Z. Well, the far left quite clearly, or people from in this position in the tech role in San Francisco.
Your mic is hitting.
Sorry,
something.
is that better? Yeah. I'll
yeah, it's better now.
Yeah. So no, I'm just saying that I think this is going to have serious conversations, and we need to be able to move past this sort of pointing fingers at X, Y, and Z side and look better within ourselves, because it's just I mean, looking through these tweets, particularly I don't align with Trump personally, but no suppression of people is good, because that undermines your argument significantly. And to what Tom was saying as well, I mean, this is really serious, and I think we're going to have to have some proper serious conversations, reflections in the next few days.
Guys, do you think? Yes, sir, do you think? By the way, I'm sending Catherine. I'm sending you a course invite if it works to accept it, just so we have another spot for a speaker. But do you guys think that there was any? And this is me speculating, so we don't know. But is there any indication of collusion between different social media platforms? Anyone?
Is there any proof of
collusion?
There's been testimony about that before Congress.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I forget. I think Zuckerberg admitted that they talk with each other, or maybe Jack did.
So it'd be interesting to see if would be interesting to see if in this drop we'll see messages between Twitter and Meta employees, or Twitter and Google.
Could be a future drop.
I've read something about LinkedIn and Twitter before, so I think maybe looking at that, because they've both been hacked in their past, and so they sort of shared certain policy guidelines.
Yeah,
I think there's probably going to be a lot of evidence coming out in the coming days or weeks.
49 is out.
Oh, okay. Oh boy, it's fast compared to the other day. Let's see. 49, you said?
Yep. Yeah, 49 just.
Oh yeah, I missed 48 too. Okay, so he says in 48, the significance is that it shows that Twitter in 2020 was at least deploying a vast range of visible and invisible tools to rein in Trump's engagement long before J6. The ban will come after other avenues are exhausted. Number 49 is, in Twitter docs, executives frequently refer to bots. For example, let's put a bot on that. So a bot is just an automated heuristic moderation rule. It can be anything. It can be a time a person in Brazil uses green and blob in the same sentence, and an action might be taken. So they use a lot of automation tools to suppress conservatives, right? They didn't just do it by hand. They would basically just wait for something to happen and put a bunch of flags on it, right? It's pretty easy to set up a bot. You can do this in any number of programming, scripting tools. Essentially, if you tweeted certain words, learn to code, right? You tweet learn to code, and suddenly you're suspended. That was the thing they did for a while, and I hope that would be one of the next drops, because I'm really curious to see what decision making went behind that one.
Interesting. Hey, it's John Nosta. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be back.
Thanks, John. Good to have you back.
I see Tom Fitton is in here. I just want to raise this issue because I think it's falling between the cracks. I believe there's a disproportionate number of FBI and CIA people on the Twitter payroll. I think that is, as I've tweeted, a human resources slush fund. Now, not only talking about chief counsel and the overt malfeasance that's going on there, I think that it would be very interesting to take a look at the work history of the high number of people that I believe were sort of inculcated into Twitter as an active role, but also as a parking lot between jobs.
I agree with you. We'll get on to that.
Number 50 is out.
Yeah. In this
Yeah,
instance, he's talking about bots here. Yep. It appears moderators added a bot for a Trump claim made on Breitbart. The bot ends up becoming an automated tool invisibly watching both Trump and apparently Breitbart. Trump by J6 was quickly covered in bots. So basically, they found like a really effective way of suppressing everything that he said, right? Wow. And this, that's what they did. Big. They had the crap out of him. And the example here is the video from Breitbart that says, Trump, if we don't root out alleged voter fraud, then we don't have a country anymore. So there's evidence of them putting it here. They said, hey, team, going to add a fraud label on this. Claim a fraud at about 40 seconds in video. Yep, replies Stuart Roth. We'll also add a media ID to the bot. So anybody posting this video, right? A media ID is basically a way to detect your metadata. So if you re-upload the same video, it's got the same file data, it will be suppressed. That's how they got it. Like certain memes, for instance, got you suspended for tweeting it out. I can attest to that personally. Number 51, there is no way to follow the frenzied exchanges among Twitter personnel between January 6th and 8th without knowing the the basics of the company's vast lexicon of acronyms and Orwellian unwords. So these guys were speaking in code, right? Just looking through this, for example. Number 52, for instance, he goes, to bounce an account is to put it in timeout, usually for 12 hours or a review or a cool off. So when they say we're going to bounce this account, that means that you're going to put you in a timeout, like a 12-hour suspension.
And that gives you plausible deniability.
Correct,
you create language, right?
So
that's right. Yeah, we're just bouncing it.
I just checked on
link to Breitbart. Yeah, they link to Breitbart, and Noel off in the DMs here. The Slack chat says that give a heads up to folks, give it another few minutes, then proceed with bouncing. So they're going out of their way to suppress Breitbart News, which is a journalistic news website, conservative news website, and they use it to bounce it. Incredible.
These guys are the most unfun hall monitors ever.
Mm-hmm. I did it. I want to get the audience's opinion about the collusion. Audience, I've just tweeted and I've pinned it above. If you think Twitter colluded with other social media platforms, probably should have made it into a poll. Would have been easier, but you can comment there.
Why didn't you redo it? Redo it and make it a poll. It'd be better.
Great idea.
Yeah,
I'll do it now.
I'll just make it. I just wanted to make one quick point. So I'll shut up because I know I talk about. But no, I think because I've been shadow banned on Instagram, and I mean Instagram Meta, it's small, left leaning now, but as I say, I'm pretty centrist on my opinions, but I'm pretty sure that there are certain features or certain things. I think the big tech companies tend to have like a certain sort of unofficial sort of set of guidelines. I am like completely speculating here, but from what I understand from people who work in Silicon Valley and that sort of thing, there's a fair amount of overlap in terms of people rotate a lot, right? It's a rotating door, so people go from Snapchat to Instagram to Facebook to LinkedIn. It's all sort of happy-go-dory sort of exchange of ideas and values. So I'm pretty sure that they take some sort of like a handbook of sort of principles and thoughts.
Okay, 53 is out. So yeah. He goes, interstitial, one of the many nouns used as a verb in Twitter speak. Denialist is another. Means placing a physical label atop a tweet so it can't be seen. Interesting. So that's an interstitial, right? And I just added Dr. Rolligator. I guess he's a pretty popular guy. He's in the chat now. So if he wants to speak, he can.
Yeah. There's actually just something I wanted to bring up. People are going to remember this when I mention it, but that might not have stuck in their memory. Before the election, they turned on a feature that changed the way that retweets worked, and you couldn't retweet directly anymore. You could only do a quote tweet. And what happened was they decided to tell all of the tech outlets where they had friends that they were doing this and how to get around it. Because if you did not fill out any content on the quote tweet, then it would just be a regular retweet. So what wound up happening is people who weren't aware of this would wind up turning the original retweets into onions. So you have to like go several layers down through the quote tweets to find the original shared content, which was able to further slow the spread of news that they didn't want to spread. Whereas the regular news outlets could, tweet to their main line, and everything would be flowing just fine. And since they were explaining this to people who were reading the tech platforms like Verge and other outlets, Mashable and other outlets like that, they were explaining how to get around this. That meant that their stories could spread, more regularly. And what people were doing was they didn't want to put a quote when they tweeted. They just wanted to retweet. So most of the tweets wound up being like just a period to put something there so that they could get the tweet out. But that, again, that created onion layers where you'd have to delve several layers deep in order to get to the original tweet, unless it was the original quote tweet. And they turned that off sometime, I think, late December, and said that their experiment was over, and the results were that most people didn't understand what was going on. Whoops. So I just wanted to bring that up in case anyone had forgotten it, because that's another way that they were controlling mechanisms without violating any, people violating rules. They were just confusing the users, but telling some users how the game worked.
I do recall that, and 55 is out. It says, this is all necessary background to January 6th. Before the riots, the company was engaged in an inherently insane / impossible project trying to create an ever-expanding ostensibility rational set of rules to regulate every conceivable speech situation that might arise between humans. Okay. And then there's just a follow-up tweet that just happened seconds ago. This project was preposterous, yet its leaders were unable to see this, having become infected with groupthink, coming to believe sincerely that this was Twitter's responsibility to control as much as possible what people could talk about, how often, and with whom. What do you think, Mario?
This is insane, man. And I'm inviting, I'm seeing it, I'm going through the audience to see who's listening, and it's just nice to see people from both sides of the aisle listening to this.
Vivek here, he's got a lot of insights into how corporations work. So go ahead and speak.
You talking to me? Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I mean, somebody picked me to join this, and I really enjoying the discussion. I mean, I think that the biggest part of the story remains, and I think, there's a lot of smaller aspects to it that have come out, but the biggest part of the story remains the lurking state action, right? The idea that now the reality that governments are working with these companies to do their dirty work through the back door that the government could not get done through the front door under the Constitution. I first wrote that up in the Wall Street Journal in January of 2021, and it was dismissed as a conspiracy theory. I think that the purpose of writing about it was to warn about the most flagrant kind of constitutional violation of all, the kind that would go undetected. Because you know what, Vladimir Putin, if he wants to shut something down, he'll just shut it down directly. But in the U.S., if you're able to use the private company as an avatar, as a Trojan horse, to be able to do your dirty work instead, it's more likely to go undetected. And I'm sorry to say, it looks like the more we're seeing come out in recent weeks, the more it looks like that piece back in January of 2021 was interpreted not as a warning, but as a how-to guide, because it has been far worse than I ever imagined. And I see a lot of the arguments that people have been making on Twitter and elsewhere suggesting that, well, just because the government told you to doesn't mean that it was coordination, doesn't mean that it was necessarily unconstitutional. And actually, not to bore everyone and put everyone to sleep with the legal angle on this, but the Supreme Court's actually been pretty clear about what are the three things that comprise state action. It's either if you're responding to a threat, or if you're responding to an inducement, so that's either a stick or a carrot, or if you're engaged in what they call willful participation in a joint activity. If you look at some of those files that Taibbi dropped tonight, look at the repeated pattern of coordination. That is willful participation in a joint activity, not to mention the responsiveness to implicit threats. And so I just think that's by far the most important dimension of this, and by far the most legally impactful one that, as much as we might say something about the rest of what we saw from Barry Weiss's posts about, knowingly shadow banning or whatever. I mean, those are revealing too. I think the state action element of this is the one that has by far the most Richter scale of 9 legal and constitutional implications.
Yeah, but the interference, if you want to call it that, of FBI with Twitter, the only evidence of that we see is when they told them to take down tweets or suggested they take down tweets related to misinformation around mail-in voting. The FBI has a job of protecting American elections, and that includes stopping misinformation that could impact an election. So I would beg to differ that.
Okay, hold on a second. So just you're wrong, because Jen Psaki called for social media companies to collaborate on banning people from all social media platforms. So there was definitely she publicly called for it.
Ian, one step better on that. Go ahead. I just wanted to include one more example, and then definitely want to hear the counter view. Just the most egregious example, I think, was actually White House officials directing Twitter executives in a private meeting in the White House, Andy Slavitt, White House advisor, specifically naming individuals like Alex Berenson, that they specifically pressured a private company to remove critics of the government. So if the First Amendment was intended to do one thing, it was intended to allow citizens to criticize their own government. That was the number one thing this was meant for. Is you couldn't do it in old England, in old monarchy. But here you could criticize the government and you were free to do it. And yet here was the White House directly pressuring. There's internal documentation at Twitter now released showing that they were responsive to that pressure, pressuring a private company to silence not just general critics of the government, but specific critics of the government by name. And if there was exactly one thing the founders and the framers of the First Amendment worried about, that was it. And I think that so I want to hear the counter view on this, because there were different degrees of pressure, but to me that's the most egregious form, and everything else is just different in degree, not in kind.
Yeah, I don't have any counter to that, because I don't know enough information about that case you're talking about. I'm just talking about what we've seen tonight. I don't see any pressure by the FBI on Twitter to do anything other than remove what they consider misinformation around mail-in voting and some inaccurate details that were provided in tweets. So I agree with what you said there, Vivek, but I'm just talking about what's happening with this information we're seeing tonight.
By the way, Ian, you mentioned there's another drop, Ian.
Yeah, there's another drop.
We're getting back up here.
I'm going to read the drop, and then I want to let Tom Fitton speak, okay?
Yeah, agree. Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, so number 56, and this is done sort of like out of order. He did this by accident. Number 56 is the panic first breaks out on G6. There's a fair share of WTF-style posts mixed in with frantic calls to Twitter to start deploying the full arsenal of moderation tools. What is the right remediation? Do we have interstitial in the video? Asks one employee in despair, and that's some random guy. Because they're freaking out, right? They had no idea whether it was okay to post. This is a Kyle Becker tweet that was showing a video of a person being shot on Capitol Hill. So they're freaking out about that one. They wanted to suppress it. They're not sure what to do with it. And then number 57, the firm's executives on day one of January 6th crisis at least tried to pay lip service to its dizzying array of rules. By day 2, they began wavering. And by day 3, 1 million rules were reduced to 1. What we say goes. Okay, and number 57, it's another number 57, I guess. Wow, what the hell, dude? Like, he doesn't know how to count. Matt Taibbi doesn't know how to count. The freedom or deaf tweet by Mike Kudry from hashtag Stop the Steal elicits heated reactions, and he's tweeting about what happens today determines the next 100 years for country, freedom or death. I mean, it's pretty hyperbolic. And number 58, Yoel Roth groans about Kudry, says, "This asshole." But this seems to be determined to stick at least somewhat superficially to the rules, itching to act if this constitutes incitement. And then he says, he links the tweet and says he's on his last strike for 3 different policies. If this constitutes incitement, I will permanently suspend him or PS him. Yep. So 59 at 2:39 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. freedom or death tweet by Mike Kudry from hashtag Stop the Steal elicits heated reactions, and he's tweeting about what happens today determines the next 100 years of a country, freedom or death. I mean, it's pretty hyperbolic. And number 58, Yoel Roth groans about Kudry, says, this asshole. But this seems to be determined to stick at least somewhat superficially to the rules, itching to act if this constitutes incitement. And then he says, he links the tweet and says he's on his last strike for 3 different policies. If this constitutes incitement, I will permanently suspend him or PS him. Yep. So 59. At 2:39 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, a comms official asked Roth to confirm or deny a story that date restricted Trump's ability to tweet. Roth says, we have not. So this is him responding to somebody internally to see if, they prevented Trump from tweeting anything. So, I would like for Tom to speak now.
Thank you. Look, I'm no lawyer. But I've had more experience than I care to admit to with respect to the FBI's operations and what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. What they're not allowed to do is to initiate investigations into American citizens based on their First Amendment protected speech. And then even worse, take official action to persuade and punish them through a third party or a private party. So what we're having here being put out before the American people is evidence of FBI criminality targeting the civil rights of American citizens. There's no legal justification for the FBI to investigate you or me for our tweets unless the tweet is it's been brought to their attention, A, and it's obviously a violation of law, meaning I'm calling for someone to be killed or something like that. But other than that, the idea that the FBI would target anyone over opinions and facts about election controversies is just beyond incredible in terms of being violative of pretty much every notion we have of how the FBI is supposed to operate and how our rights are supposed to be protected by the federal government. So there's just no way over that. And, one of the things I think worth noting, if I could just briefly mention, is those 3 censors from the Twitter and Safety Council that resigned today, the leftists. And they talked about how excited they were that Twitter safety moved beyond the U.S.-centric views of safety, right? And I think that's important to note because it's not just Twitter doing it, but Facebook and YouTube. They've moved beyond the United States' understanding, America's understanding of free speech and the First Amendment. And they've taken on this transnational progressive view of speech, which is essentially hostile to speech that gets in the way of their agenda. So that's something to look out for. They don't consider themselves to be defenders of the American way when it comes to free speech. You see that in Facebook with their oversight board, which has spent more time trying to vindicate the rights of foreign nationals with respect to Facebook than anything they're doing here in the United States. And so that's something I think we should all be paying attention to. Thank you.
Can I piggyback off of that very quickly?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, thanks. Just from the European perspective, and I'm not talking for the entirety of Europe. I mean, it's 40 different countries, very different. But, there is a much stronger left-leaning element there. You've got some, I wouldn't say they're full socialist, but you've got very socialistic-esque parties in power in certain countries. And if, what that FBI thing is even, we begin to break that down and understand the intricate details of that. That is like, for anyone listening, 1984 policing, not just sort of trying to influence your speech, literally trying to police the very words that you can use, the very way that you can formulate things. Think of the specific segment where you don't need any more sort of words to describe things in an intricately extravagant way, just good, not good. Basically, your language is limited, and you can only use certain phrasing for very specific contexts and in very specific times. And as someone who is first and foremost about freedom of speech, that's quite scary that the FBI can even be on that. So, yeah, sorry, I'm at the gym, so I'll shut up.
You guys, at what point do we entertain looking at the biggest social media companies in the world like utilities, and in terms of putting some very basic regulations on them to protect citizens' most basic civil liberties.
We don't want any government involvement in this because that's what led to all this censorship to begin with.
How so? Can you be very targeted on that?
So when we go into regulation, we can think back to internet as utility. So the net neutrality back in 2017, where people were freaking out because the government all these tech companies were going private and all of this, and they wanted the internet to be a utility. But history has proven that you can't trust the government with using these utilities against their own people. Where if we tried to nationalize all these social media sites, that's basically what it is, nationalizing these social media sites, considering them a utility. The more government involved with Twitter itself.
So how do we protect, this is true, but how do we protect these kind of fundamentals? We're sort of at the mercy of whoever the owner of any given social media company.
Mm-hmm.
We're sort of at the mercy of them being sort of, goodwilled and kind of going along with these kind of principles and ideals that we share. But if they don't, or, they're human beings, that's gone. So how do we protect that?
You guys, let's put a bookmark in it. Let's extrapolate on this further right after we get through the couple new drops here. This theme of policy perhaps being stressed by queries from communications executives who themselves have to answer the public's questions occasionally appears. 2 days later, you see chatter about pulling comms out of the loop, and then again, there's a screenshot of a few folks on the Safety Integrity Board going back and forth. We are already getting questions about conspiracy theories and our enforcement process all the time. Not a wait and see thing. And by the way, that person's name is redacted. The second person is Lauren Culbertson. She says, let's talk about that, but we need to hammer that out in ahead of an emergency and evolving situation. Redacted responds respectfully. It needs to be your team doing so holistically, to which Lauren responds, I don't think it's wise to reach out to comms folks proactively on this. Followed by number 61 now from Matt Taibbi. The first company-wide email from GAD on January 6th announced that 3 Trump tweets had been bounced, but more importantly, signaled a determination to use legit violations, quote-unquote violations, as a guide for any possible permanent suspensions. And then we got a screenshot there from the email to I don't know, Ian. Do you want to take it from here?
What number are we on? I mean, what?
So we're on the screenshot of number 61 of a screenshot of an email there.
Okay. Yeah. So they're basically talking about in this email. I just read it. They're talking about how they banned Trump for 12 hours, right? And they removed his tweets. And they also tweeted here. We have also tweeted so there's transparency in our actions. And making it clear that future violations of Twitter rules will result in a permanent suspension. Thanks, Vijaya. So this is from Vijaya Gad, who gave them instructions on what to do exactly. This is a company-wide email. Number 62, quote, what the actual fuck? Safe to say, Trump's go home and love and peace tweet mid-riot didn't go well over at Twitter HQ. They were not expecting him to say that. Because Trump tweeted, and this is a screenshot of Trump's tweet, where he says, there are things and events that happen when a sacred landslide victory election is unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from great patriots who have been badly and unfairly treated for so long. Go home with love and in peace. Remember this day forever. So he's telling people to get the fuck out of the Capitol, right? And they're having a little meltdown about this inside of Twitter, where Patrick Conlon says, what the actual fuck? Can this go to staff too? I'm labeling this now. And Yolroff replies, yes. Patrick Conlon replies, says, sorry, I actually got emotionally angry seeing that. Turns out I'm not a full robot. Who knew? And then someone else replies, and his name is redacted, says, it's gut-wrenching. He's a horrible human being. So they were, like, literally having conniptions over about Trump in the private Slack chat while deciding how to run the platform. I mean, I forget who it was who said that you can't let your emotions get ahead of you because then you'll make bad decisions, and that's exactly what they did. They made a bad decision because they're all having a little baby hissy fit over inside of the room instead of just controlling their emotions. So that's where we are right now, where basically we're run by babies.
Yeah, I'm annoyed. I'll give Mike to George. I'm annoyed about one thing with today's jobs. Like I was hoping we'll see a bit more bipartisan action from both sides of the aisle. Instead, we saw it even lean more targeted towards the right. George, I saw you unmute. Go
Thank
ahead.
you. Thank you. I think it's time to draw the principles here. So if I can just pull back a little bit to 30,000 feet, you guys are doing a great job with the details and naming some of the principles. But I just wanted to sum up for the listeners and anybody who joined lately. We almost don't need any more. Yes, we need full documentation of what's going on and all that, but it's very clear that what we're seeing here is the widespread and arbitrary, and as just mentioned, emotional suppression of opposing views by admittedly a private entity, but under the strong influence of government entities. And covered up, I'd love to hear some of the lawyers here talk about it, covered up by a widespread deception and misrepresentation about it to Congress, to the stockholders, to the Twitter users. There's outright fraud going on. They're just lying about it through their teeth. And they probably had a right to do a lot of it, but it's the way they did it, it's the arbitrariness, it's the deceptiveness, and it's the misrepresentation that we're having a problem with here. And now they can come up with another 150 tweets in the Twitter files, but those are the principles. That's been established beyond a doubt.
Well, you said they had the right to do, they probably had the right to do it. And I think that's an interesting point because if from a legal perspective, if they have the right to do it, what's changing this? Because we could talk about this, whether it's right or wrong.
Transparency. I think transparency is what's needed.
Where does that come from? Where does that transparency come from if it's not, say, regulated? Because say we don't want more government interference. Okay, fine. But then where does the transparency sort of come from?
Well, Elon says that he wants to. I'm sorry.
Well, he says that. Well, okay, no, that's fine. But he says he wants transparency. But what guarantees? Like we can trust Elon, but trust is trust.
Well, there are mechanisms to do that. There are overseers. There are ways he can build that in. He can build in checks and balances and ways he can.
That's what I want to see happen,
these need to be invented. Yeah. And just because we haven't we can't invent them necessarily on the spot. But there are many ways to solve problems. Some of which are prohibitions called regulations and laws. I think a lot of us don't want to see that, but we want to see the sunlight, the transparency, and all that stuff, and that will go a long way.
Well, to me, that would have to come from innovation, right, and the mechanism. Yes. So it's okay. He doesn't have to come up with that, right. Today, but it does need to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're seeing the beginnings of it. I don't know how many of you are on the Twitter, what is it called? Community Notes thing. I've just been admitted to it. And I got it. I've been on it for 2 weeks, just achieved the level where I can actually write the notes. And I got to tell you, I am impressed as hell about it. It's a relatively new program. And I don't want to take us off on another tangent, but just to mention the principle that the curation among the community, the users, the hive mind, whatever you want to call it, is really, really being done conscientiously and clearly and carefully and wonderfully. I'm impressed. I came with a great deal of skepticism about it, but it is really good, and it's going to get better because it's new. It's going to keep getting improved.
Can I add something on the community notes thing real quick?
Sure.
So I'm in a Discord server with a bunch of the Twitter developers and some of the top community notes writers. about developing the program. We've been in the server for over since it rolled out, basically, just giving them feedback and all of that. And some of the stuff said in the server and kind of the people that were giving feedback, it takes a lot of pushback because a lot of these, the diversity of perspectives issue within the actual program, many of the users that are pretty prominent, pretty successful within the community notes feature had a problem with that because the way they view the right wing is that we're all conspiracy theorists and their perspective shouldn't be considered at all. Luckily, the battle of ideas is able to be fought within this Discord server, and the people over at Twitter that are left in the program have took a hardline stand saying, no, this diversity of perspectives is probably the most important feature. Taylor Lorenz, lover or hater, she wrote a pretty balanced article about this in the Huffington Post, where she somehow got access to a bunch of the files within the server and wrote up pretty fair piece. I know a lot of people don't like her, but worth the read there. And that kind of goes into kind of the debate that I was having, where I had posted in the server that the only way Elon Musk is going to ban this feature is if it became partisan or unreliable. And so far, just the way that the algorithm has been formed within that, it's been pretty successful putting out truth. Yeah. It's not flawless yet, but it's a lot better than, more trustworthy than Facebook or any other fact check.
I see a wide diversity of opinion that's backed up by, I mean, the norm is you got to give sources, you got to give links, you got to give, and the reliability of those sources. Mario, I don't know if you, I've kind of taken us off into more solutions than, and that may not be the purpose of this discussion. So I apologize if I did so.
I appreciate touching on that. And Ian, do we have any hints so far from the drops about what could be coming in at the next drop? I know the drops are not finished, so that we could be seeing
they're
more.
Definitely not finished. I mean, it seems like he might be finished very soon. I mean, it's been going on for like 2 hours now, right? There's no way it's just gonna keep going. But it looks like tomorrow we're gonna see another drop from what's his face, Schellenberger. He's going to be covering a different story, and as is Barry Weiss on Sunday. So we're going to see more stuff. Not really sure exactly what they're going to be talking about. I doubt it's going to be the same as this topic. I think Matt Taibbi is focused mostly on January 6th and their suppression of Trump. Basically, what he's doing right now, he's setting us up with a framework to understand how the moderation works. Because, this drop is kind of boring right now. It's kind of boring. It's just kind of going on for a long time. But it offers us a lot of context so that when he drops the new ones, we'll be able to understand it better, right? So,
but for me, this drop had the biggest bombshells, though. Like, I took notes here. The biggest three things from all the drops.
Yes.
Fucking long, yeah.
So the biggest bombshell number one is that Trump cabinet didn't use the censorship option. That one really surprised me. Surprised me more than the other two. The second one is Trump was shadow banned prior to the election, even 7 days before the election. That one surprised me, but less than the first one. Still, the fact that the Trump cabinet didn't actually use the censorship option, I'm still struggling to believe it. It's just so weird. And then the third one is FBI spoke to Twitter executives before Trump's suspension. So kind of bringing in the FBI.
And also number 4 is that they started, creating new tools to suppress people, and they stopped following their own rules, right? They were just suppressing people for making jokes. That was how bad it got. It's like at first it wasn't that bad, and then afterwards they got really used to using the tools and suppressing people that they started just deploying them at any time. They figured, oh yeah, this person's telling a joke, let's suppress him. So it looks like he dropped 2 more.
Sounds familiar.
He dropped 2 more notes here. It says the last 2 notes about January 6th. Yoel Roth at one point looked and found Trump had a slew of duplicate bot applications. So here's what's funny. They had him so fucking suppressed that they had multiple rules against him they shouldn't have, right? Like, there should just be like one rule or something to suppress him. Instead, they had like multiple overlapping things to suppress him at the same time. Taibbi tweeted, by the end of the first day, top executives are still trying to apply the rules, and by the next day, they will contemplate a major change in the approach. Watch Schellenberger, so you should follow him, Michael Schellenberger, he's a good journalist. this weekend for the play-by-play on how all of that went down. So that we're going to get into nitty-gritty details on exactly what happened on January 6th. Basically, we'll see. I mean, he has a different type of tweet style.
He's an interesting choice for this, don't you
Oh
think?
yeah,
Like,
he's very conservative, and he's a pro-nuclear guy.
he's
He also
not
talks.
very conservative, actually. He's
You
more
sure?
on the left. Yeah, I talked to him
Is he
about it
now?
too. Yeah,
Wait,
he's not
I always thought he
conservative.
was conservative because like he
No,
speaks about
people
nuclear
try to
energy.
peg him as a conservative, but he's
Wow.
really more to the left, and he's
Well, I trust him. He's a good journalist.
he
I
ran.
know a lot of his stuff.
Well, he also ran for office. So he's a politician, and he is very interested
Fascinating.
specifically in like homelessness,
Yeah, I helped him
drug
with that a
addiction.
little bit. Yeah,
Yeah,
various stuff. Yeah.
so very
Um,
surprising choice.
So number 65 on January 8th, which Barry Weiss will describe on Sunday, Twitter will be receiving plaudits from our partners in Washington, and the sitting U.S. president will no longer be heard on the platform. Wow, that's going to be explosive. This is where the government steps in, right? This is where the government steps in, where they're basically getting pats on the back from Washington. Number 66. Lastly, people on the left, right, and in between want to know what else is in the Twitter files. From suppression of shadow banning of leftists and lab leak theorists, or amplification of military propaganda, or conservative accounts. We know everyone has questions. So here's another tweet here at number 67. And while we stumble on tidbits here and there about topics ranging from COVID to foreign policy, the reality is that the data sets are enormous, and we're still working through them. More is coming. Good night, all. Wow. Yeah. So
what was that last one? That last bit that shocked you? Where the government said the government is getting involved.
Oh yeah. So that was number 65. Yeah, Barry Weiss will describe this one on Sunday, where Twitter will be receiving plaudits from our partners in Washington, and the sitting U.S. president will no longer be heard on the platform. See, this is when he was banned, and then they got his pats on the back in Washington. Our partners. That's interesting. That interesting phrase. That our partners, meaning they were working with people in Washington to suppress Donald Trump. That's what it sounds like to me. That doesn't surprise me, but well, at the same time, it's like, huh? Yeah.
Sounds like no COVID stuff for a while, huh?
Oh yeah.
I've just pinned on my profile. I've pinned it above the space for the next drop. So we all come back here and go through the next drop together.
It'll be tomorrow.
So yep. Oh, it's gonna be tomorrow. They said it's gonna be tomorrow.
Yeah. So follow Schellenberger MD on Twitter. He will be dropping tomorrow's thing, and it's a play-by-play. It's going to be a play-by-play of all the bannings that happened on January 6th, all the way up to like January 8th, and then January 8th will be on Sunday, where they will be going over the Washington connection with Barry Weiss. So yeah, that's going to be really interesting. They're both going to be really interesting. I feel like this is the best TV show. Really, like I stopped watching Netflix. I literally canceled my subscriptions to all these TV shows because I have no time to watch them anymore. I'm like on these spaces every single night now, and I'm covering this stuff. And I'm appearing on TV shows, thank you, Eric Bowling, for having me on. And it's like it's not the only one, right? Like everybody's just like saying, "Hey, Ian, come talk about it." It's like, okay, you're taking up my time.
Even the previews, like the last few tweets you were reading were like a preview for like next episode of.
So we had Harry and Meghan's Netflix release. This chances it 10 times over, I think.
Oh yeah, this is way more interesting than any of that. Like, holy
I watched
crap.
the first 5 minutes.
Like, there's a difference here, right? I mean, between watching a TV show and this, it's like we have direct interaction here with all the players. We can make fun of them. You can make fun of Viola Roth for being a piece of crap, or we can, confront these people, right? That's the whole point of it. So it's nice. We're participating. This is interactive entertainment. Like I said, Twitter's a video game. It really is.
Ian, what do you make of the assertions and the points raised by Vivek when he was here earlier surrounding the potential legal liabilities of what we've seen transpire?
Okay, so what he said was, I agree with it, I think. Like, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm sure he has a better grasp on this, but essentially what he's saying is that the levers in Washington, right, they will not suppress you on their own. They will use third parties, such as Twitter, to do that for them, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. I think that the big drop on Sunday when Barry Weiss talks about it, about how they received plaudits from Washington, our partners in Washington, that's going to expose quite a bit on what's actually, who was pulling the strings there, if anyone.
Any chance we can get Elon Musk to join the space tonight?
No, man. So so Tara's doing space, a female-only panel to discuss child. What were they discussing? I can't. I don't want to use.
They're
use the wrong
discussing
term.
child sexual exploitation.
Sexual exploitation. So we were going to merge. We were discussing about merging the space with theirs and having Elon come here, but we were still going through the drops. So we're like, hey guys, you do it with Elon separately, and then we'll keep going through the drops. And which I find,
yeah, that's what he's talking about them with them right now, because they initially started the space with Ella Irwin. She is one of the new trust and safety employees at Twitter, and she was the one who highlighted to Elon how Twitter had essentially taken the money away or all the resources away from child sexual exploitation, right? So pedophiles are on this platform doing a lot of bad things, and there was nobody to deal with it. So she was the one who raised the issue to Parent Agrawal and Yoel Roth, and they refused to do anything about it. And as soon as Elon took over, she brought the issue to him, and he has made it one of the company's top priorities to deal with abuse and child sexual exploitation and all that stuff. Pretty disgusting overall. I mean, we've seen how Twitter has over the years simply ignored, revenge porn. It has ignored CSE and all this stuff. It got sued for it, I think, in 2020 or 2019, and no one did anything about it. So,
all right, guys. So I'm gonna end the space. Everyone, pin tweet on my profile and it's above. We'll see you again all tomorrow. I'm gonna get some rest. Ian, you need to go get some sleep. Appreciate Tom. Thank you so much for joining. Stephen, I tried to send you a co-host invite, man. You helped a lot. Really appreciate it. And of course, all other speakers, John, Brian, Piotr, Harrison. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you all again tomorrow. Thanks, guys. Bye, everyone.
See you, everyone.
Set your reminders, everyone. Set your reminders.
Set your reminders.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Hey guys, welcome. We have some huge breaking bombshell information coming out today. As you've probably already seen, Part 3 of Twitter Files is currently dropping, but Eliza Blue, if you don't know who she is, she's going to join the call any moment, has some other pertinent information that I think you all are really going to want to be hearing